Sound check 1 2 3. Sound check 1 2 3.
Hello and good afternoon. I'd like to call today's meeting of the Emergency and Community Services Committee to order. Today is September 19th, 2024. And please note that quorum is present. In committee today, we have Councillor Jackson, Councillor Wang, Councillor Maureen Wilson, Councillor Brad Clark, Councillor Cameron Kretsch. And please note to committee members that all electronic devices are to switch to a non-audible function during committee meetings. Before we get into today's agenda today, we do have some ceremonial activities. In recognition of the Juravinski Hospital and some of their important work in reducing offload delays of ambulances, I'd like to ask Chief Sanderson to introduce our guest from the Juravinski Hospital and let us know a little bit more about why this is important, especially in the context of Code Zeros in Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair Wilson. Thanks, members of committee. Thank you, and allow me to introduce some of the members of the Juravinski Hospital team that's been so important in our joint success in reducing ambulance offload delays and improving ambulance availability for emergency response across the city of Hamilton. A reduction that's been critical in reducing the number of Code Zero events in the city to levels that have not been experienced since the early 2000s. So the Juravinski team, could I ask you to come down, please? As they're coming down, I would introduce you to Neil Johnson, the Vice President of Oncology and Site Executive for the Juravinski. Liz Ferez, the Director for Emergency Medicine and Critical Care. Mark Coupland, who's the Clinical Manager for Emergency. Holly Laverty, Clinical Leader in the Emergency. And of course, Aaron Manns, the former Clinical Manager in Emergency. Ken Wagon and Amy Salter, both registered nurses in the emergency department. Great team to work with in the process. For members of committee and for the public watching at home, these individuals are representatives of a team from Hamilton Health Sciences that's achieved what many thought was not possible. Despite increasing patient volumes, they've reduced ambulance offload delays from an absolute high of more than 3.5 hours at the 90th percentile in September of 2021 to their current performance in the area of 15 to 20 minutes. That is an improvement of more than 90% in performance. Tremendous activities. And I got to tell you, none of this improvement happened easily. The initiatives from Liz and Mark pushing quality improvement processes, the mapping, the checking processes, performance and evaluation of PDSA cycles, the involvement of broader frontline team members were all critical. The visits to other hospitals that have been successful and the leaders that have been able to make improvements, such as North York General and Andrea Ennis. Bringing the Juravinski staff together, along with bringing in experts like Andrea Ennis to shift the culture. And it took gaining medical staff commitment, remodeling of areas of the Juravinski ED, and of course the support of the Ministry of Health in expanding the dedicated offload nurse capacity. It all took time, and it took commitment from the leadership of the hospital, especially Vice President Johnson and Director Ferez, and the ED, including Mark Coupland, the manager, Holly Laverty, and Aaron Manns as clinical managers. And of course, from the frontline nursing staff represented by Ken and Amy, who we know were absolutely critical to this success. When you work in the healthcare industry, you know that nothing happens without your frontline staff being engaged in it. All of the frontline nurses at the emergency department in the Juravinski have just been critical to making this work. They're there 24/7 on the lines helping people. The success at the Juravinski has been contagious. Sometimes in healthcare, contagious is good. They demonstrated what could be done, what was the art of the possible, and we're now well on the road to similar improvements at the Hamilton General and at St. Joseph's Hospital. And the Juravinski has been sharing even more broadly with a recent visit from the Ottawa area hospital to see what it is that we're doing here in Hamilton. So on behalf of the Hamilton Paramedic Service and the City of Hamilton, I need you to accept this token of recognition for your outstanding success and the functional partnerships that we've had. Frontline staff. Thank you very much. Please display that in an appropriate area in the hospital. Congratulations. I would ask Vice President Neil Johnson, if you wanted to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Chief Sanderson, and thank you, committee, Mr. Chair, for this honor. I'm happy to speak on behalf of our teams, and more importantly, the community and the patients that we serve each and every day. You have talked about many of the things that I would talk about, but I do want to emphasize just very quickly two things. One is leadership, the other is partnership. And I think your comments, Chief Sanderson, have not covered an area that I would like to highlight, which is you and your team's leadership and partnership and willing to work with us. And it's just exemplary leadership on all of your team members, working with us, doing those hard changes that take time and effort. And it's just reassuring. I've been only in Hamilton now for 2.5 years, and it is just heartening to know that we have top-tier paramedic services in the city serving our community. So on behalf of the Juravinski, I do want to thank you and your team very much for that as well, too, on the partnership side. And I would say on the leadership side, people like Liz and Mark and our teams and our physician leadership have done exemplary work, but it is in that spirit of leadership and partnership that we're pleased to contribute to a better community here in Hamilton. So thank you on behalf of our team.
Turn the rough watch pictures.
It'll just go. Oh, are you able to, there's a handle there. Thank you, Chief Sanderson, and thank you to the team at the Juravinski Hospital. Truly a really important moment to commemorate and recognize. That's a radical transformation of where we were just a year, 2 years ago. And it's collaboration working together to put the health and the safety of Hamiltonians first. And just really, really grateful we were able to start our meeting today with that. Yeah, and now everyone has to go back to work for the less exciting pieces of our agenda today. Clerk Kohler, are there any changes to, apologies, seeing a speakers list forming on our ceremonial items. Yeah, Councillor Jackson.
If you wouldn't mind, Chair Alex Wilson, I just want to say as well, Chiefs and a number of you as new members of this council, the previous term or so of the past council, just in a cursory way, Chief Sanderson laid out a vision and a mission for us as council, saying he needed continuous annual sustainable operating funds from the municipality to the best of our ability, keeping in mind taxpayers as well that look after our $2 billion corporation. And from time to time, he asked for capital improvements to purchase additional vehicles and increase the staffing of OPSU 256. And I want to also acknowledge Union President Mario Postorero and the fabulous paramedics that service our entire community. Chief Sanderson said if the municipality could hold the fort year after year from a funding standpoint, he would continue to appeal to the provincial government for additional funding where more should be coming from, and he would work on a collaboration with the hospitals to see what the problem was with offloading. This is a miraculous day, and I just wanted to add further political commentary to his great work. Thank you for allowing me that, Chair Wilson.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Indeed, an important moment. If not seeing anyone else on the speakers list for ceremonial items, Clerk Kohler, are there any changes to our agenda today?
Yes, we have a few changes to today's agenda. Under Communications 5.2, correspondence respecting a recommendation to support Mohawk Sports Park feasibility study. That's 5.2A to 5.2T. We also have a revised delegation request from Jennifer Bonner, the Hub respecting increased gun violence, and the Building Safer Communities funding issued by Public Safety Canada will be for a future meeting, but up for approval today, as per our request from the delegate. And that is it for our changes.
Thank you very much, Clerk Kolar. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Kretsch. Any discussion on today's agenda? Not seeing any. Are we able to move to the vote? And that carries 6-0. Thank you, everyone. Unanimous for those counting today. And declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest about today's agenda? Not seeing any. We can move right along on to the approval of minutes from our previous meeting. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes from our previous meetings? Councillor Jackson, Councillor Wang, thank you so much for moving and seconding those minutes. If there's no discussion, we can move right to the vote. And that also carries 6-0. Moving right along to our communication items, would I be able to have a mover and a seconder to receive and refer the correspondence items on the agenda as indicated? Councillor Clark, Councillor Wang. Is there any discussion on any of the communication items in front of us, 5.1 or 5.2? Not seeing any discussion, we can receive those, and if something comes up, they're being received to later, and so part of that as well. They're being referred, sorry. Thank you. And that vote carries 6-0. Nearing the end of our preamble of today's meeting agenda, may I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the delegation requests as presented? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Jackson, is there any discussion on the delegation requests? Then we can move to a vote, and then the meeting can really get going. And that vote's up. Carries 6-0. Thank you, everyone. We can now move to our delegate, Kevin Gonsi. Kevin, when you're able, if you're able to make your way up to the front, you'll have 5 minutes for your delegation. You'll hear a little ding at the 4-minute mark. That's just kind of letting you know that you're nearing the 5-minute mark, and you'll hear a second ding at around 5 minutes. And once everything's set up for you and you're ready to go, it's all yours. Yeah, and I think we'll also just get your mic set up for you too. When you see the little red light, it's on.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, or good afternoon. My name is Kevin Gonsi, Chairman of the Mohawk Sports Park Sports Council. We're a registered nonprofit organization whose mission is to support the sustainability of Mohawk Sports Park through collaborative strategies that result in greater synergies, cost efficiencies, and more importantly, increased community benefits. Our latest initiative involves completing a comprehensive feasibility study that will assess the need for, benefits, and sustainability of a proposed community sport and recreation hub that will have the potential of supporting a park-wide revitalization strategy and create a safer, more inclusive, and accessible public space. Today's presentation is intended for information purposes, and we wish to point out that details continue to evolve as our work progresses, and nothing is definitive at this point. I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Vincent Kuber, who's with me today. Mr. Kuber is Executive Director of the Steel City Athletic Club, is one of over a dozen community volunteer members that serve on our project steering committee. And we're quite fortunate to have his involvement as well as several other community individuals who've expressed interest in supporting the project. With reference to slide number 1, our project incorporates guiding principles from Canada's Healthy Communities Initiative and Sustainable Development Goals and supports priorities involving inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Our project steering committee, I'm happy to report, has achieved the Canada 50-30 Challenge standard of gender and equity representation. And at this time, I would like to acknowledge the generous funding support coming from the Canadian Tire Jumpstart Foundation, as well as the Government of Canada's Tourism Growth Program that will help us cover the cost of our feasibility study. Our work followed engagement with city staff who referred us to the process for unsolicited proposals coming forward and recommended the completion of a feasibility study. Although our project vision remains fluid, it can best be described as a proposal that is rooted in sport, driven by community need, has the potential of delivering new, varied, and complementary uses, supporting sport, play, and social outcomes, as well as year-round opportunities. From a sport capacity perspective, we wish to bring attention to our previous success involving over $4 million of investment at the Ray Lewis Track and Field Center located at Mohawk Sports Park. These improvements have included infrastructure and accessibility improvements, new community programs and services, the purchase of new community program equipment, a record number of events and competitions being hosted at that venue, as well as the Ray Lewis Track being recognized as having the largest number of facility booking hours between all of the field facilities up at that site. As a result of this investment, I'd like to bring attention to the Hamilton Olympic Club, which is an official anchor tenant in partnership with the City of Hamilton at the Ray Lewis Track. This club has been recognized last year by the provincial sport body, Athletics Ontario, as the fastest growing club in Ontario. Most of their current program groups are at capacity, and this investment helped them in their COVID recovery efforts as well as their long-term growth plans. They're fortunate to have received a new addition to their coaching staff in the throwing disciplines. And this club, our estimate is this club achieved over 500 medal performances, personal best achievements, and provincial and national records this past season. As well, this work has provided extended benefits to nearly a dozen community clubs, school boards, and organizations that use this facility. Just wanted to make mention as well the addition of the coaching staff. This is a young man who's been identified as being on the fast track for coaching at the national level, and he travels from Brantford 3 days a week to coach local athletes as well as athletes that travel from Brampton, Niagara, and Guelph to work with him here in Hamilton. As a result of the investment in facilities, he bases his coaching programming here in Hamilton. This success has resulted in expressions of interest from nearly 40+ community groups and organizations that support completing a feasibility study and expressing an interest in working in collaboration. Our priority is to support the ongoing operations and growth of the existing stakeholders currently based at Mohawk Sports Park and identify potential collaborative opportunities that can contribute to the long-term sustainability of this vital community asset. We are using a broad lens to assess the needs, which may include seniors' active living programming, adaptive and integrated programs and services that support persons with disabilities, community recreational interest, and environmental support, and green initiatives involving park-wide recycling program, and making use of the adjacent rail trail and nearby natural waterfalls as part of a proposed sports tourism strategy that has the potential of providing significant economic benefits to our region. From a cultural and heritage perspective, I'd like to highlight the fact that Mohawk Sports Park is situated along the historical Mohawk Trail, which served as one of the earliest transportation routes across our region and provided a trail system that was used extensively by Indigenous communities between Brant Region and Upper New York State. We have received several expressions of interest from national, provincial, and sport governing bodies, as well as potential private sector investment into a regional high-performance center component. Our proposed model support both competitive and recreational needs, most importantly, supporting local youth who lack the necessary resources to represent our community at the provincial, national, international levels. I just want to point out that this proposed model will be a holistic approach, not just the body insofar as competing at high-level sports, but as well in health and nutrition, as well as providing academic supports for those wishing to pursue post-secondary achievements. We look forward to keeping members of council advised of our progress over the next few months and working in collaboration with any potential stakeholders that support our organizational vision of health and wellness, equity, and conservation. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I know Councillor Jackson had some questions for you. We didn't really worry about the dings because I was getting a signal that Councillor Jackson was going to extend your time anyway, and so we thought we'd just let you finish there. But I do know that he has some questions, going to pull out some further information.
Thank you. I didn't want to preempt anyone else. Obviously, I have familiarity.
You're first on the list, Councillor Jackson.
All right, thank you, Councillor Wilson. Thank you so much, Chair Kevin Gonsi, for coming in. And Kevin is being a bit modest here. Chair Wilson, he has been the past president of the Hamilton Olympic Club, the Golden Horseshoe Track and Field Council, and was, as he pointed out, with many partners, instrumental working with the city of Hamilton about 7-8 years ago now to put over $1 million at that time, some from the city's capital funds. I remember a couple of $100,000 from my Ward 6 reserve as well, and from other levels of government and Trillium funding to put over $1 million 7-8 years ago to finally revamp and upgrade the Ray Lewis Track and Field Center. And it was through the Hamilton Olympic Club and Kevin and many others like Bill Urey, Heidi and Scott Davidson, Val Sargent, Rich Gelder, that they advocated for the change of the Mohawk Track and Field complex to have honoring Ray Lewis, a great Olympian athlete as well, and it was their advocacy with council's unanimous support at that time that we changed the name to it. So Kevin's got great success. Vincent, good to see you as well as program director there. I mean, members of committee, when you see over 3 dozen potential stakeholders across our city that are wanting to participate. They're at the table. I was invited to a couple of meetings. I attended at Turner Park. Kevin has put together an immense collaboration, and I was very happy to hear of his funding received from the federal government so that he could begin and carry on with the feasibility study. This could be, Kevin, why do you believe, my question after a long complimentary preamble, Chair Wilson, through you to Chair Kevin Gonsi. Kevin, obviously, you believe very passionately, and let's say for the plain language of anyone listening in, this is, if you will, an all-purpose, multi-indoor, year-round facility that you are primarily promoting with all the other potential amenities within it. So through you, Chair Wilson, to Chair Gonsi, why do you believe so strongly in this facility, Kevin?
Thank you through the chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor. First and foremost, I believe in the process that's been presented to us insofar as doing a due diligent approach and completing a feasibility study. For those who don't know me, if the results of the feasibility study don't show something that's going to benefit this city in the way of sustainability and community-wide benefits, then I, for one, would not support it. But I acknowledge the fact that I think completing a feasibility study is the best course of action to take for everybody's interest. Looking at our earlier success at the Ray Lewis track, afterwards, for better or worse, whatever you want to call it, I had several of the other existing stakeholders, rugby, cricket, baseball, to name a few, approaching me saying, hey, how can we get these improvements in our area? I fully acknowledge the fact that budgets, municipal budgets are under extreme strain. We have other priorities that are in the news constantly in regards to infrastructure, homelessness, and housing. I look to give back to the community by identifying potential needs and benefits such as this, and my first inclination in engaging with all of these groups that were listed here is that there could be a strong need and a tremendous community benefit created by investigating this potential development opportunity. Keeping in mind that specific features, programming and services won't be finalized probably until another year or so, until we have time to engage further with the City of Hamilton and go over the necessary reports and that. But I feel strongly there's potential here. We should at least investigate it, and that's what we're trying to do.
Great answer, Kevin. A very comprehensive, elaborate answer, especially on process that you've always been big on. And I think at just some appropriate time, besides just receiving this, I know that with the committee's permission, I'd like to, in the future, Chair Wilson, set up a meeting with Director Chris Hersteck and his staff, and Kevin and Vincent, to just discuss exactly the lay of the land and the municipality's relationship, if any. Again, no ask has come in today, but somewhere down the road, if this is to evolve into something wonderful and a state-of-the-art and all-inclusive, and although selfishly and parochially so proud, Kevin and the group have chosen Mohawk Sports Park, but of course it would be a citywide amenity and asset. I would, with the committee's permission, just let you know that I would love to set up a meeting offline with Kevin and members of his sports council with Director Hersteck, just to see the lay of the land and future relationships. So, Chair Wilson, that's it for me. Thanking Kevin and Vincent. And I had one question of staff at the appropriate time of the Mohawk Sports Park master plan and its current status. So you tell me when I could ask
so what we're
that.
going to do is we're going to go to Councillor Wang and then Councillor Clark on the speakers list, answer any questions, receive the delegation, and then there'll be a pause before we move on to the next thing, where I'll come back to you, Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. And I know I went a little beyond. Thanks for your indulgence.
Councillor Wang and then followed by Councillor Clark. Have some questions for you, Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I'm not quite as familiar as Councillor Jackson is about the Mohawk Sports Park. In fact, I've only been there a handful of times, and mostly to watch my friends play hockey at the four pad there. So I'm actually not very familiar with this area at all. So when I see in your slide, you talk about the Regional High Performance Training Center, and I'm trying to go through your survey currently to try and understand what you're really asking here. What is the vision, or what is the thinking behind this Regional High Performance Training Center? I'm just not really understanding. Is this going to be a community good and a community benefit, as Councillor Jackson has just spoken about? Or are we going to this specialized route? I also recognize that Vince has a great basketball program where there's prep opportunities for high-performing athletes. So I'm getting a little confused. Is this community-oriented or is this high-performance-oriented?
Thank you through the chair. Thank you for the question. I think our total vision here is, and I've had this discussions with many people with regards to, well, this is a recreation center. We're trying not to frame this from the perspective of a standard community recreation center, but rather a hub model, which was best of my knowledge was introduced through the Kathleen Wynne government as a way of consolidating health support services, which supported cost efficiencies and synergies. Looking into it, the hub model is now being adopted by several communities across Canada. Calgary in particular has officially adopted getting away from the community recreation model to a community hub model that is sport and recreation based, and they've adopted it officially as part of their strategic recreational planning until 2030. So when you look at a community hub, as we're proposing, you're looking at components and how those components can support and sustain the operation of the facility. Based on our initial engagement of the stakeholders up at the park, they all identified the number one criticism they had, for lack of better words, is that it's a seasonal facility. The only facility up there is the hockey arena that goes year round. A number of the groups, which include soccer, rugby, cricket, track and field, they struggle to find suitable indoor training and resources to support their programming through the winter month. They support a model that's coordinated within Mohawk Sports Park where they already have a presence. Our model won't exclude anybody from participating in high-performance training systems, coaching staff, resources, education. It'll welcome everybody from seniors to members of our Canadian Olympic team. We've engaged with our provincial and national sport bodies, initially with Athletics Canada and Athletics Ontario. Rugby Ontario is now on board. They want to investigate a multi-sport model for high-performance training so that members within our region, rather than traveling to Toronto or another province to access these same resources, can access these support systems here in Hamilton where they live. I'd like to point out, though, the grassroots effort and benefits here, and Vincent's organization as a prime example. Our group is committed to working with underserved populations that have go above and beyond in servicing needs besides sport and recreation. Their particular programming is interesting to us because we can provide financial supports to accessing these programs and services, as well as support academic tutoring and supports that will help guide young people to post-secondary operations. So through this community engagement, we'll disclose further details, but the high-performance portion of the hub is just one portion that we anticipate being developed through the hub model.
Okay. Second question through you, Chair, is how long is this feasibility study on for? And what is the expected or the anticipated outcome coming out of this feasibility study? What will you anticipate the data to represent?
Okay, so through the chair, first off, when we were referred to the process for unsolicited proposals coming forward, we were basically told that a feasibility study had to be completed. Unfortunately, based on my interpretation, staff can correct me on this, there are no actual defined guidelines as to the composition of the content. So we relied on engaging with, through a competitive tendering process, a local design firm that's undertaking the feasibility study, which should be completed before the new year. And as with most feasibility studies, this is site-specific and facility-specific, it'll confirm key areas such as community need, first and foremost, what the collective vision might be from engaging with different stakeholders who might make use of it. But as well, most importantly, and this is what I'm big on, is the inclusion of a business plan, a solid business plan that show the operational revenues, what the costs are going to be, and how we can mitigate or reduce risks for all of the stakeholders, including the municipality, because long story short is it's municipal property. So it's not going to be a short process. It's going to be a long process, but we look forward to engaging with city staff and members of council moving forward on this initiative.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Councillor Clerk is next on our speakers list.
Thank you, Chair. Good to see you again, Kevin. I think you pretty much answered all of my questions, so to just recap, you were asked by council and staff to treat this as an unsolicited proposal. And from that, you went away and started the feasibility study process. And this is really the beginning of that study, telling you who all the players are. Do you have an indication as to the cost of the feasibility study?
Through the chair, so looking specifically at the cost feasibility studies, and I'm not an expert, that's why we consulted with the experts to complete it. Feasibility studies, depending on what you're looking at achieving, can range from a couple of $1,000s to several $1,000s. I'm happy to say within a relatively short time, we've raised $120,000 that will pay for the core components of the feasibility study, but as well as a business plan, and other areas as well. We're continuing to seek additional funding for specific areas involving sports tourism strategy. We've engaged with Sports Tourism Canada, so we're currently assessing what costs may be involved insofar as doing an economic generation report on what the capacity this project might have for generating economic benefits. So there's additional costs with that. So I can tell you most of the funds are accounted for, so we're looking at spending anywhere from $100,000 to $100,000 plus dollars on the feasibility study, and which will include other subcomponents.
We just wanted to hear you twice, so.
If we're just able to mute on the WebEx there, I think that'll, thanks so much.
So I guess to clarify, we're paying for the feasibility study, but there's also sub-portions of the study that will add to the cost, such as the business plan development, the economic benefits from hosting sports tourism benefits. We're waiting on those cost estimates right now. So, but we're committed to doing this, funding it. I can't tell you, just to reassure you, we have solid support from the Canadian Tire Jumpstart Foundation, as well as several foundations and sport governing bodies that are committed to assessing the results of the study, and they're most interested in seeing what we can identify through this work. So,
Thank you for that, Kevin. And do you have a projected timeline on the next phase of the feasibility study?
right, so based on my conversations with the consultant, they've broken the feasibility study process into 3 phases. Phase 1 was a community engagement and sort of a visioning process. Today's presentation is intended as part of our community engagement process to further advise people. We don't want to come to you at the end of the feasibility study and, hey, we did all this work. By the way, can we sit down and discuss what the potential here is? So we're just finishing up phase 1 now. Phase 2 will go into further engagements with the stakeholders, meeting with them as to what their facility requirements are, defining needs and wants, looking at what the costs are going to be, and then incorporating a facility concept, and then further engagement back with the stakeholders to reassure us that we're on the right path. And then finally, the final publication, which will be hopefully collaborative agreements with many of the major stakeholders, as well as hopefully upper levels of government, which we hope to complete by the new year. So.
And so far, you received funding from the private sector and funding from the federal government?
Right, so I'm happy. Our model actually doesn't rely on one funding support. So mostly because I don't mind bragging, because of our track and field community kicked in to start things off, which is considered a community contribution of $10,000. We then did a presentation and met with the Canadian Tire Jumpstart Foundation, which is big on what we're trying to propose here. They gave us a grant of $30,000 through their foundation, and assurances that they would work, depending on the results, they would work with us towards a capital fundraising campaign, depending on the results of that of the study. As well, our funding application to the Tourism Growth Program received a tremendous amount of praise from the federal staff that identified our project as having significant potential and capacity to bring economic benefits to the region. You have to realize our community hub, in partnership with key people such as the Hamilton YWCA, will create jobs, not only during the construction phase, but the operational phase. We're looking at a bilingual service model in consultation with our Francophone groups, as well as with connecting with underserved groups, groups that serve underserved populations, and as well, from the sports tourism aspect of it, they identify that Mohawk Sports Park could be an excellent, our location is within the region. That would be an excellent venue for a variety of sports tournaments and competitions, which would provide economic benefits through sports tourism to our area. So.
And so far, have you had any financial support from the city of Hamilton? That's my last question.
No.
That's a succinct answer.
We haven't, yeah. So we haven't asked, and Councillor Jackson, I need to be quite transparent. established the ground rules. He was perfectly upfront, and I'm always receptive to his feedback. Being a senior member of council, made it quite clear the city does not have the funds for extravagant projects. And having heard that, I took that to mean that the onus is on us to raise the money to complete the study, and I'm firmly committing to that process. Our track and field council kicked in $2,500 as part of the $10,000. So the community is committed; they're behind it, and we're committed to raising the funds to complete the study ourselves.
Councillor Jackson's always a straight shooter. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. That's the end of our speakers list today, but thank you so much for bringing this update on the project, for answering committee's questions. Really appreciate that. Please feel free to grab a seat again. Thank you so much. And if I could just grab a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation. I'm not surprised. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Wang, are you okay to second that? Perfect. And that vote will be coming up shortly, and then we can get into any questions to staff or other pieces as we got there earlier. And thanks again, Kevin, for coming out and for that update.
Thank you, and just my acknowledgement, expressing appreciation to staff for supporting today's presentation. Thank you very much.
I'm assuming that carried 6-0, and it did. There we go. Thank you. Councillor Jackson, you flagged earlier that you wanted to take an opportunity to ask a question to staff at this moment.
Thank you. Just because there's no report in the agenda, I just thought it would be perfect at this time. Thanks, Chair Wilson. Before I ask either Director Hurstek or Director Cynthia Graham of Landscape Architects, Kevin, I just want to say to you and Vincent, I think there was a compliment in there with your last comment somewhere. But anyways, regardless, I just want to say I didn't say never, but I think I indicated to Kevin just different times that we're living in today. But I didn't say the municipality would never be there without obligating the municipality. And number two, Chair Wilson, before I ask the question, Kevin knows, and all the new facilities that have come into Mohawk Sports Park in my 30+ honored years representing the area, I've always done my darndest to have peaceful coexistence with the permanent residential community surrounding the 100-acre park along Mountain Brow, Lime Ridge, Upper Kenilworth, and Mohawk. And up to this day and time, there's never been an appeal. The only project I ever voted against in my time on council was the massive velodrome that I just felt would have overwhelmed the park and the community at that time. So I am just so excited about the potential of this project. Through you to Director Graham, I see her online. Director Graham, could you quickly give us some indication, because I don't think anything will move forward until we hear from you and your team as to the status of the Mohawk Sports Park Master Plan Study Review that I think between you, Director Hurstek, Manager Don Walton, has been underway probably for a good year or two. That's my question, to get some idea. Through you, Chair Wilson.
Through the chair, Cynthia Graham, Director of Environmental Services. I'll answer part of that, and then I'm going to throw it over to the bench to fill in some gaps. So my team under my division within Landscape Architectural Services will complete a master plan review of the entire sports park. That includes both the Olympic club side and the Ray Lewis track and field, as well as the Bernie Arbor and all of the other areas in the park. We do that review looking at end-of-life amenities, what are the changing needs citywide, what are the changing needs of the community, and look to then put forward a plan of revitalization, targeting those things that need to be done right away, and then staging over time as is the process. The piece that we're sort of waiting on is the overarching conversation that Chris and his team are leading, relating to what are the needs of the city when it comes to sports amenities. So that's the piece that I'll flip it over to the bench to fill in that gap about that timing. Once that study is done and we have that information, then the landscape architectural services team will take that information and then formally start the master plan process for this park in particular.
Thanks so much, Director Graham. Just quickly to Director Hurstek and Manager Walton, I think I have been led to believe that the indoor-outdoor facility study from Recreation hopefully may have been by end of 24, but through you to Director Hurstek, Chair Wilson.
Through the chair, that is correct, Councillor Jackson. We will bring forward the implementation strategy from the Rec Master Plan, which will identify the recreational outdoor needs, especially for Mohawk Sports Park. Just to include as well is that we do have two proposals, one that Kevin has just introduced today, and there's an additional proposal potentially for Mohawk Sports Park. We do want to find what those recommendations are going to be through either the feasibility study or the groups coming forward, and those may identify outdoor and or indoor recreational needs for the Mohawk Sports Park.
So again, to conclude, your hope is by Christmas of this year, maybe possibly bleeding into the early part of 25, through you, Chair Wilson?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Wilson. I think that's good for the public record. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Can I just ask for some clarification about the master plan for the entire city's recreation division indoors? And where does this project sit with all those projects that at some point in the future you'd like to do if you have the money?
Through the chair, this project currently in the vision stage is not part of the recreation master plan. That's why the unsolicited proposal, staff recommended a feasibility study so we could define what that recreation amenity would be.
Okay, and do we have a capital plan for recreation showing what we're going to be doing for the next, say, 10 years?
Through the chair, correct, we do.
And at some point, we have to decide how this would fit into that 10-year plan.
Through the chair, we're hoping that the feasibility study will define what the cost of the facility would be, funding sources, operating, what the hours of operation would be, the project partners, and clearly identify the amenities, what makes up the building, whether it would be indoor soccer, indoor football, what the amenities would be. That would help define the cost and the operating of the facility.
Thank you. And my last question is with the talk about these new community recreation hubs. Is that something that the City of Hamilton staff are looking at in our plans? Up till now, we've been doing community centers or recreation centers, depending on the size of the property. We do parks, again, depending on the size of the property. The hubs kind of put everything together in one facility, which may make sense in a rural setting, but I'm worried about it's taking away from any of the facilities that we're now using.
Through the chair, excellent question. I don't think we've identified in the Rec Master Plan formal hub groupings, but anytime a new recreation facility is being developed, we do look for partners, childcare, potential, you mean maybe like Wesley Urban Ministries as well. So we look for community partners in that. We do have many hubs, but that's not been formalized with the Recreation Master Plan. It's identifying the rec amenities.
Yeah, those hubs have come together kind of organically with our work within the communities, which is always a positive outcome for residents. So just wanted to ask those questions. I'm not negative on the project, just trying to understand how we do this balance between what is already in our docket and what this may do for recreation overall in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I'm not seeing anyone else on our speakers list for kind of this interstitial period in our agenda. We're about to move into the various report sections, staff presentation, consent items, discussion items. Just giving folks a heads up, we do have 7 reports in front of us across those 3 parts of our agenda. We're going to start off with the staff presentations. We have two. First, 8.1 on the municipal golf course update, followed by an update on Hamilton's plan for age-friendly community. We'll have a chance for questions and receive the presentations in between. That's what's next for us on today's meeting. And Steve, whenever you're ready to go, if you're just able to introduce yourself, and then whenever you're good to go, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Wilson, members of committee, and residents tuning in virtually. My name is Steve Savor. I'm the Manager of Sports Services within the Recreation Division. I'm before you today to give you an update and to provide information on our municipal golf courses. In response to a motion of council, our recreation staff and colleagues around the corporation have worked to answer specific questions related to the motion, which we will believe will give an opportunity to committee to have a fulsome discussion on our municipal golf assets. In preparation for that discussion, the presentation today will provide a summary of the information that you see on the screen above you. I'll start off with an overview of the properties that we own and operate within golf portfolio, followed by a basic overview of the programs and services provided by our staff. Respecting the items of the motion, I will focus on the utilization and facility expenditures, capital infrastructure realities, our environmental management of the courses, emerging sector trends, and linkages to a variety of corporate strategies within the city. Our focus today is to share available information with committee to answer the specific questions that were posed to staff. We have put, as a collective, we've put a considerable amount of time and effort to compile the information within the report, which will provide a detailed response to the motion. We have not asked for any decisions, nor are we putting forth a recommendation to committee at this time. That being said, staff welcome any direction from committee during today's meeting. Before moving along, I would like to thank report writer Manager Romas Kalasius for all of his work in assembling all the information, the detailed information from our meeting and the various contributions of our colleagues throughout the corporation who assisted with this report. I'd like to thank the multi-departmental team that includes representation from the following departments: Public Works, Planning and Economic Development, and Corporate Services. The staff that contributed to this report are experts in their respective fields and sectors, and throughout this presentation and the discussion, I'll lean upon them for their expertise if there are more detailed questions about the respective areas. So I'm going to start off with our property. As it relates to our facility assets, we're fortunate enough to own and operate 3 18-hole golf courses within the city. The Kings Forest course, located at the Kings Forest Municipal Golf Course, has been identified as one of the best public golf courses in Canada on numerous occasions and has been a favorite of members and public alike. It celebrated its 50th anniversary of operation in 2023. Chinook Civic Golf Course is currently celebrating its 100th anniversary of operation this year, and it includes the Martin Course as well as the Badeau Course, which were designed by legendary Canadian golf course architect Stanley Thompson. Both properties are owned and operated by the City of Hamilton through our historical research. There's no record of any restrictions that were made when the lands were acquired by the City of Hamilton. While the City of Hamilton owns and operates the golf courses, they do fall under the jurisdiction of the Niagara Escarpment Plan. This is an important factor to consider for both properties, as all development and changes in both property and land use must go through the detailed approval process as set forth by the Niagara Escarpment Commission. The Niagara Escarpment Planning and Development Act requires the review of the Niagara Escarpment Plan every 10 years. The start of the next review is anticipated to begin in 2025 and will take a few more years to complete. Locally, the Urban Hamilton Official Plan identifies our golf course lands in a few different areas of designation. The Urban Hamilton Official Plan allows for active and passive recreational use in addition to other uses. Some of those secondary commercial uses are included but not limited to food concessions, recreational equipment rentals, and other such activities, provided that they do not create a negative impact on the open space and land. From a zoning perspective, when development permit applications are submitted to the Niagara Escarpment Commission, the City of Hamilton is circulated as a commenting agency, and the Niagara Escarpment Commission will implement City of Hamilton official plan policies. While there have been a few iterations of zoning over the course of the years, the current zoning for Shadow Golf Course is Zone A. That speaks to conservation, open space, park and recreation. And to note, this is a correction from the report, which noted a previous designation of Zone A agricultural. For Kings Forest Municipal Golf Course, there are a few adjacent recreational amenities that are interspersed throughout the site. However, the majority of the site is Zoned A. Again, conservation, open space, park and recreation. The softball complex that is adjacent to Zone B, suburban agriculture residential. And the Rosedale Park, including the arena, is zoned as C, urban protected residential district. So to give a little snapshot in terms of our programs and services that are offered by staff, I just want to, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the hard work and dedication of our staff that exhibit an undying passion to work and to provide services in the environment that they work in. The breakdown that you see on the screen speaks to our staff complement from a golf operations point of view, specifically turf management, and from a golf services perspective, so membership sales, pro shop operations, lessons, camp, tournaments, and special events. The operation of the course is also supplemented by our wonderful volunteers that assist our team as course marshals and starters. At Kings Forest, our food and beverage offerings are managed by the city staff. At Shadoak, we have engaged a third-party operator since 2017 to manage those needs. Provision of this service is important for our on-course and special event needs. The programs and services offered by our staff are reviewed on an annual basis. And staff obviously recognize the opportunity for our programs to be more inclusive, diverse, equitable, and accessible. Some of those opportunities require capital investments to satisfy accessibility needs, but many others simply involve discussions with our community. Our staff are presently working on expanding program offerings to attract new interest and with the intention of year-round access to the facility. Over the last 5 years, staff have really capitalized on the opportunity for alternative use in the off-season. So in addition to our long-standing areas for tobogganing, staff have introduced winter golf, walking paths, and disc golf, and free rentals of snowshoes or Nordic poles to supplement off-season activity. In terms of the historical deliverables that we were asked to provide information on that were identified in the previous operational plan, staff were originally approved to provide and to continue operations in the golf portfolio for a period of 10 years, and that was subsequently extended after 2016. As you can see on the screen, the number of selective objectives that were required of that operating plan at that time. And during that time, in analyzing those previous reports, revenue and membership increases were not realized as a result of global downturn in the golf industry during the period of 2007 to 2016. Additionally, clubhouse renovations, development of practice facilities, and course irrigation projects that were envisioned as a byproduct of meeting those revenue targets were unfunded or either deferred or abandoned. While all the targets were not fully realized, approximately $1.3 million in golf course capital reserves have been reinvested in the upgrades to the golf course during this period. Some of those investments included a water permit to take water from the Red Hill, divert water from the Red Hill Creek, construction of 2 kidney-shaped ponds, construction of a pump house to filter pond water for irrigation, 5 new bridges that were installed, and new construction of cart paths on the back 9 of Kings Forest. Course utilization really tells an interesting story over the course of the years. We can definitely see a fluctuation of golf rounds from 2009 to 2017. From 2018 onwards, we started to see some consistent growth after the implementation of different pricing strategies that were implemented during that time period. In 2020, you'll be able to see a jump in rounds played. This increase was a result of the global COVID-19 pandemic and the associated restrictions on recreational activities. As you can recall, golf was one of the few activities that were permitted to continue during the various stages of pandemic restriction. So since 2020, the rounds played increased by 65%. And overall, from 2018 onwards, you can see that the reutilization rates steadily increased from 47% in 2018 to about 78% in 2023. Unfortunately, our legacy and current software has not captured unique golfers in a consistent manner. So we're not able to drill down to how many times a singular individual came to golf, as opposed to how many times that round of golf or different users were actually represented in those rounds. Our expectation for the future definitely is to ensure that the software that we employ is able to report on these metrics in the future. If I were to focus on the revenue figures, the steady increase in revenue can be attributed to my apologies. Skipped over the meat of the issue, the financial aspect. This slide provides an overall financial snapshot of our golf portfolio for each course. The golf portfolio was transferred back to Recreation Division in 2019 and has seen a 58% increase in revenue and consequently a 36% increase in expenditures. In the years following the pandemic, we have seen consistent profit levels at because of the interest in golf activity, and it seems to have sustained itself beyond the immediacy of the pandemic. Obviously, the prevailing thought is that the operation of our golf courses is intended to be self-sustaining. Although the Golf Improvement Reserve account, which was depleted and closed at the end of 2018, staff have continued to offset overall expenditures with overall revenue that we see on a year-to-year basis. In a few slides from now, I will speak to the capital needs that are sure to have an impact in future years and will definitely impact the discussion moving forward. So getting back to this slide that I showed previously, I wanted to provide a snapshot from a revenue perspective and focus on those figures for a quick second. The steady increase in revenue can be attributed to our strong membership base, but definitely buoyed by our various activities. Those activities include daily green fee admissions, equipment rentals, tournament and special events, and even our non-traditional offerings. Winter golf alone has generated close to 50,000 rounds of golf over a 5-year period during the winter months. The net impact graphic that you see in blue, for those of you who can see on the screen, is really representative of our need and to address the capital issues on a year-to-year basis. Moving on to operating expenses, this current slide is really intended to give you more clarity on the type and magnitude of operating expenses that we deal with on an annual basis. While the percentages might change from year to year, the breakdown of the 2023 operating expenses are reasonably representative over the last 5-year period. So as you can see from a graphical description or graphical representation, the largest operating expense represented here is employee-related costs at 45%. So again, this gives you a snapshot of what we see on a year-to-year basis in terms of the cost categories. Our golf facilities, as with other corporate facilities, need financial investment. I'd highlight that these investments that you see here are not intended solely to improve facilities, but more so to maintain proper functioning of those facilities. The figures noted in the current slide represent building condition assessments taken in 2017. A more recent exercise completed as it relates to the corporate asset management plan, the total replacement cost for golf facilities adjusted to 2024 figures is $17 million. The average facility condition that was categorized in that review was categorized as poor. The amount that you see simply speaks to the above-ground infrastructure that is present within our facilities. What is not reflected in these figures is our below-ground infrastructure, which is equally concerning as we continue to reach life cycle renewal milestones. We are definitely now seeing some of the effects of the lack of intervention on some of these sites. Our water consumption rates and cubic meters per cubic meter have been listed in the current slide, as you see here. Consumption is definitely difficult to predict at times, but it's highly influenced by weather patterns and reliant upon responsible maintenance routines. There is an irrigation pond at King's Forest that serves as the water source for irrigation needs at that facility. This was built during the development of the Red Hill Valley Parkway and has been extremely beneficial to our turf management staff. The water consumption rates at King's Forest that you see in the chart represent the needs of the administrative offices and clubhouse, as the retention pond really accommodates the on-course irrigation needs. Consequently, the water source at Shadok is fully reliant upon city resources. A human-built irrigation pond at Shadok would decrease the reliance on city water sources, and obviously the topography of Shadok course in relationship to the escarpment would provide a viable opportunity to develop an irrigation pond, but would also require significant investment. The environmental management of courses is predicated on legislative requirements. As it relates to fertilizer and pesticide use, golf courses in general are regulated by the Integrated Pest Management Council of Canada. On an annual basis, we are tested and evaluated on our application processes and management procedures. Obviously, protecting our community's environment is our top priority. So regulated fertilizer and pesticide use is definitely a common occurrence at golf courses, but whenever possible, we use cultural practices to decrease our reliance upon these aspects. Some of those cultural processes include deep tie aeration, top dressing, water management best practices and employing those aspects, use of slow release fertilizer, implementing soil health improvements, adjusting mowing heights, removing dew, and finally scouting and record keeping. So all of these techniques improve soil structure, promote deep root growth, and enhance draining and support healthy turf, reducing the need for pesticides. As we move on to the emerging trends within the golf sector, we're fortunate enough to have engaged in the extensive experience of GGA partners to provide our staff with information on trends in the golf sector. GGA partners, formerly known as Global Golf Advisors, provided the City of Hamilton staff with similar analysis in 2015, 2017, and 2018. Previous reports focus on marketing and pricing strategies that have guided our business practices. In those reports, we identified opportunities to develop favorable interest in golf, including the development of intermediate memberships, the introduction of flex passes that really encourage discounted multiple visits. The most recent review this time around has again concentrated on the price positioning that the City of Hamilton has within the golf market. Our capacity levels, as we see them now, are definitely being tested, and as a result of today's wider range of golfers, and more specifically, new participants to golf that have migrated over to the sport as a post-pandemic transition from other activities. For your information, a reasonable utilization rate for golf courses is around 38,000 rounds of golf per year. As noted, both early in both locations are approaching those thresholds, while Kings Forest is closer to that threshold than Shidok at this point, but approaching that 38,000 round threshold. Through the analysis of the GGA report, it has confirmed that we are aligned with the market rates, considering that we're a municipal property going up against private operators. There are several operators within a 50-kilometer radius. However, our rates are reasonable, and growth has been a result of usage, and not necessarily because of our rates, though. In terms of trends, many courses are moving away from traditional membership packages and focusing on offering volume round discounts. The golf sector is also seeing an increased flexibility of golfers that play at varying times due to the resulting work from home situations. And finally, the advancement of technology now captures the interest in golfers for a longer period of time. An example of this is in golf simulators. You might more germane to our discussion from a municipal perspective, the success of golf is definitely influenced by the operating model and the respective priorities of each municipality. Our staff currently participate in a working group with 6 other municipalities to talk about best practices and to hear about some solutions and to hear about some of the challenges as well. And obviously the approaches within each municipality differ greatly. Some of the noted differences among those municipalities, the shift from internal operators to third-party operators. Traditionally, again, there has been a strong membership focus, and many facilities are now looking to balance that with non-membership opportunities. There are varying opinions and desires for 9 versus 18-hole courses, and also the increased exploration of alternative or mixed use uses for our golf courses has been a prevailing and common thought and discussion among these municipalities in our discussions with them. While no 2 municipalities are alike in operation, what is consistent is that similar discussions regarding the future of golf assets is occurring nationwide. So as we shift those kind of thought processes to Hamilton, we're mindful that the golf courses are not solely golf courses, but community assets that impact and are impacted by a variety of influences. Those influences are represented in the various corporate strategies and plans that have been approved or are currently developed. For the purposes of this discussion, we have concentrated the focus of those strategies and plans that were identified within the council-directed motion. We recognize that golf courses definitely play a role within all these areas, and recreation staff have once again worked with our corporate colleagues to complete a review of the golf courses within the lens of those respective areas. Just to preface, I'm not definitely an expert in these fields, so that's again why I'm going to lean upon my colleagues who are definitely online to highlight any detailed questions that you might have on some of those specific areas, but I will go forward and give you a highlight of some of those strategies and elements. So the master plan, the Parks Master Plan, was presented to committee and council in 2023. The plan did highlight the shortfall of long-term parkland needs, specifically 98-hectare deficiency that is noted. And while the golf courses present a large footprint of land through the Parks Master Plan, the golf courses were not identified as active parkland. So the approved course of action was to focus on the acquisition of neighborhood-level green space. So this action does not preclude our golf courses from being considered for repurposing should elements of the parcel become surplus. It can definitely be satisfied. It can definitely satisfy expanded parkland and/or a combination of passive and active recreational space. So should this be the future direction, further review on how this can be accomplished would be needed. The next area of focus is the urban forestry strategy, and this is a great picture of the tree canopy that we enjoy within the city. So the urban forestry strategy was initially presented to Committee and Council in 2020. The strategy is a roadmap to ensure that we have sustainable urban forests by controlling invasive species, increasing tree canopy, and improving green infrastructure. As you can see, the golf courses have a significant impact on the tree canopy. We have a citywide target of 40% tree canopy by the year 2050. As of last year, coverage of King's Forest amounts to 66% of that footprint, while we have a 45% coverage rate at Shadok. Definitely, we continue to work on this, and the 400 plus trees that were added in 2023, and consequently the 100 trees that were just added last week at Shadok to commemorate the 100th anniversary are definitely steps and new additions to try to contribute to our citywide targets in this regard. So notwithstanding these contributions to the urban forestry strategy, we still have opportunities to improve, including a review of our biodiversity and invasive species at the golf courses. So that's a great segue into the Biodiversity Action Plan. And this plan was recently presented to Committee and Council this summer at the Planning Committee meeting. Both golf courses have a role and opportunity to contribute to the connectivity of habitat. More specifically, we have identified 4 of the 7 priorities in the Biodiversity Action Plan have clear links to our golf courses. Recreation staff have reviewed the priorities 3 and 7 as opportunities that we can focus on from a planning perspective. So priority 3 speaks to long-term protection and connection. So whether that speaks to identifying wildlife corridors, inventorizing species, or establishing greater opportunities to connect with our habitat, the golf courses have a role in supporting that work. So how we plan our programs and how our services and development needs to be in alignment with this priority. From an operational perspective, priorities 5 and 6 are focused on operational efforts to manage invasive species and to enhance any aquatic habitats through sustainable stormwater management practices. So as a signatory of the Montreal Pledge, Cities United in Action for Biodiversity, the city has committed to reducing pesticide use by 2/3 by the year 2030. Of course, this is an annual exercise that recreation staff complete through the IPM certification and integrated pest management program and evaluation. But I'm glad to see that our annual processes are in line with the city's long-term commitments in this regard. As we shift our focus to the Climate Action Plan, we see ourselves inherently involved in 2 areas. The first is Community Energy and Emissions Plan. So as you can see, priority number 2, 3, and 5 have been identified. And some examples of this action that can be taken include shifting clubhouse renovation and developments to a pathway of net zero, exploring a greening of our fleet vehicles, equipment, and installing EV charging stations, and to continue to contribute to our tree canopy targets. Another prong of the Climate Action Plan is the Climate Change Impact Adaptation Plan. So actions in this priority includes priorities 1 through 4. So exploring how golf courses could play an increasing role in climate resiliency, ongoing consideration of health and safety impacts to our outdoor staff, and support for the actions of the Biodiversity Action Plan and urban forestry strategy that were addressed and discussed a few minutes ago. Moving ahead with some of our other corporate plans leads me to the Watershed Action Plan. So our colleagues in Hamilton Water continue to develop this plan, their final plan on this topic, and as a key tenet within the development of this plan is to address non-point point source contamination. So obviously the topographical positioning of both golf properties highlights the need to do more work in this area. Recreation staff will definitely continue to work with our colleagues in water and wastewater to examine how current operational practices can change in order to improve stormwater management quality. When we actually look at the footprint of our courses in general, we do understand they present opportunities that can speak to other corporate deficiencies. For example, additional water reservoirs can be developed on or adjacent to our golf properties. Early in this presentation, I referenced the work to create a human-made irrigation pond at Kings Forest. So similar opportunities can be explored at Shidok as well. Definitely cognizant that it is better to be proactive more than reactive in this area of thought. And finally, the discussion has ties to our recreation master plan. The previously approved Recreation Master Plan has identified that our golf courses can provide affordable and accessible opportunities for activity. So how do we go about achieving that? Well, we have to continue to look at developing innovative programming, both golf and non-golf related activities. We need to seek out appropriate partnerships in addition to reviewing our finances and operating models. Today's committee discussions are key to our understanding of the work that staff will need to complete in the coming months. For example, the corporate asset management plans that were presented to council this summer really indicate golf facilities were included within that review, and most notably, our actions as staff is to come back with an implementation strategy for our recreational assets. I can also highlight from our Recreation Master Plan the most salient recommendation that we have here that relates to golf courses is recommendation number 53. And it really speaks to the need to develop a golf strategy that aligns to the various corporate commitments, the programmatic needs, and the financial and capital realities of our situation. Our staff are poised to do this work in 2025 and would gladly accept any additional committee direction as we embark on this recommendation. At this point, that really concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to listen to comments or answer any questions of committee members at this time.
Thank you so much, Steve. What I'm going to suggest we do is grab a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation, throw that to a vote, let you sit down, understand there could be multidisciplinary questions. We can just have one speaker's list on the report itself, just given that this is an information report. We're not making two different decisions here. So moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Maureen Wilson to receive the presentation. We'll throw that to a vote, and I'll look to both of you to put the actual report on the floor as well once we're there, but I won't go too fast. And that presentation has been received 6-0. Looking to Councillor Maureen Wilson, Councillor Wang to put the report on the floor, of which we already have a bit of a speakers list. The speakers list currently has Councillor Kretsch, Councillor Maureen Wilson, and Councillor Wang on it. So Councillor Kretsch, on the report, the presentation on the 6 appendices, I throw it to you.
No pressure. Thanks so much for this. I had a couple of questions and then I had some comments. So this is an information report. I get that. It's not making any recommendations. But would you say generally this is an analysis of our current municipal golf course assets from a variety of perspectives? And that's what we're looking at here, is kind of a comprehensive and thorough analysis of what those things are.
Through the chair, that is correct.
And two kind of pieces of factual information I think would really help me, and one I couldn't find anywhere and hope someone on staff has. Firstly, if I understand it, Kings Forest golf course is about 250 acres, which is about 101.171 hectares, right? If I have that right. And the Chidok golf course is about 232 acres. Is that about right? And could you tell me, if anyone knows, how big the Martin course is versus how big the Chidok Badeau courses, or if they're kind of relatively equal in size.
Through the chair, I don't have the exact figures, but the figures that you mentioned are fairly consistent in terms of an overall or a general kind of review of Martin versus Badeau, that you would be correct in terms of footprint, in terms of acreage.
Thanks. Those are my only questions. So I really appreciate you clarifying those for me. These are my comments. I'm not going to be moving any motions today, but I'm certainly going to reflect on what I've seen here and work with my colleagues to come up with something at some point. I'll start by saying very openly and very honestly, I think earmarking land for golf is an inequitable way to use our diminishing greenfield land assets. As everyone knows, it's exceedingly rare in the country, in North America, to have greenfield sites at this size that are so close to a downtown core. Like, it's just not something you see in most municipalities that are quite this close. We're facing multiple crises in our communities. We need more housing. We need more public, open, green space that's programmed with everyone in mind. And we need more space for community centers and recreational assets. Everyone agrees on that point. In fact, the Hamilton Parks Master Plan, which you referenced, though of course these courses aren't in the areas that are requiring the most necessary or needed park spaces, still say we need more citywide parks to help with our growing population. So let's be full of vision. Let's look at the potential to create an amazing modern park with outstanding amenities. Let's think about launching a transit shuttle service so everyone can access those amenities. Frankly, from my perspective, the possibilities here are endless. What I also don't see here, and it's something I've said enough times now that I'm sure you're annoyed hearing it, there was not an equity analysis done here. The word equity, of all the several appendices and long report, showed up once in passing, and that was it. Who uses these assets, how they're used, what communities they serve are all really important parts of how we understand we should continue using them. I don't doubt at all the award-winning nature of some of our golf facilities, but I really question whether we need to have as a city the maintenance of 3 18-hole golf courses when we could have at least occupying that space for an amazing recreational asset for everybody in the city. I think when we think about how these assets are used, the amount of water used to maintain these assets and maintain, frankly, the green lawns that they have for people to play golf on, I don't know that this is the best use of our assets now or if it ever was. And so for me, I think that's a big miss here in terms of looking at the equity analysis, in terms of the communities that are around here, the communities that could access this, what we need to be benefiting from as communities, what we need. You know, I appreciate that during COVID, this became an asset people could rely on to help them through the pandemic. But it might have been an even greater asset for people to rely on if it was treated as a park. So I won't belabor the point by saying too much more, except to say that from my perspective, when we're looking at the struggles our city is facing, looking at the priorities we've defined as a council, maintaining 3 public golf courses just isn't it. And I understand that they may be able to capture revenues and have certain popularity, and those kinds of things may all be true, and there's great highlights you've made here and strides here to talk about the good things that you've done in terms of improving these courses over the years. But we have a large and diverse population as one of the major cities in Canada, and I think we want to make sure we have incredible assets and incredible citywide parks for everybody to access, and this is prime land to be doing that or building housing on. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Crutch. Managed to get questions and comments well within the 5 minutes there. Councillor Maureen Wilson, Councillor Wang, and Councillor Clark is our current speakers list. Councillor Maureen Wilson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Before I begin my questions, I just wanted to give a public shout out to Dr. Chris Earle of Hamilton. If you are interested in a very thorough, interesting, always well-researched history of Shidok golf course, Dr. Earle has a very recent piece on it on his newsletter history/blog called The Sewer Socialist. So if you're nerdy and want some more, go there. Thank you. So I would like to, first of all, let me express my gratitude and thanks to staff and the cross-divisional staff for pulling this information. It's greatly appreciated. And I do acknowledge all the work that was involved. I just wanted to, for the first set of my questions, just focus in on, there was a slide provided identifying the total replacement value of the asset of 17 million. Before I begin with my questions, I'm wondering if you could just remind me, provide me a clarification on what that was in reference to. Thank you. To staff.
Through the chair, to the councillor, slide 14 is the slide that you're talking about in terms of capital infrastructure and really speaks to the building condition assessment that were identified and evaluated in 2017. So at that time, at point in time, the replacement value of both Shadoke and King's Forest is around 13 million. In terms of the 10-year building condition assessment, is about just over 5 million. But again, those speak to replacement values of like-for-like facilities at that time. The 17 million that was identified within the corporate asset management plan really spoke to the 2024 figures of those same conditions. So a like-for-like replacement value of those facilities, and not necessarily an improvement of those facilities, but keeping them and managing them at that current state.
Okay, just so if I further understand that, I did a quick review as part of my homework at that asset management plan, in which I thought I read that the data confidence was high in terms of the condition assessment. Golf support was 56% was identified as poor or in very poor condition, and the golf clubhouse 100% very poor condition. Did I read that correctly through the chair?
Through the chair to the councillor, yes.
Okay, thank you. If I could pivot now to the last time, my understanding, the last time the golf operations were assessed, and I think one of your slides identified it, that part of the promise was that there was, with the reconfiguration of the business, that there was going to be sufficient enough revenues generated to create a reserve which would be able to address what was then some very outstanding capital requirements, specifically the clubhouse, irrigation, and then ongoing. What I wasn't clear in your presentation is the status of that reserve, and again, so I'm clear, what are the required capital needs known now for both Kings and Shadoke, and if separately, please, through the chair.
Thank you for the question through the chair. The historic deliverables are correct in indicating a reserve was needed to supplement those capital investments. And through my presentation, I mentioned that we did not achieve those deliverables due to the downturn in some of our golf, the sector in terms of participation and revenue impact. So those commitments that were initially identified within that operating plan were not realized in that sense. We did have the creation of a reserve that was utilized on a year-to-year basis in terms of deficits and other capital investments that I identified earlier in the presentation from 2006 to 2016. However, that reserve was depleted again in 2018 and closed. So moving forward after 2019, there were no longer have a capital reserve to satisfy any of those needs. But those capital investments and capital requirements in that original business plan were not identified in that sense. to your secondary question in regards to the needs from both Kings Forest and Shadoke in, I guess, today's 2024 terms, that was identified within the work that we have done with the corporate asset management team. Collectively, again, 17 million. Again, I can come back with the breakdown in terms of it for Shadoke versus Kings Forest, but collectively 17 million was the need that was identified within the corporate asset management plan. That speaks to today's figures.
Sorry, Chair, I did hear a ding. Happy to go back on, but if I could just get clarification on that before I lose it. Thank you, Steve. So I understand the $17 million, excuse me, the $17 million references the outstanding capital needs of both courses. Is that true? And is that in $217?
Through the chair to the council, that's in 2024 dollars.
$17 million. Okay. Excuse me. I will go back on if you would like, or I can continue.
Just going to clarify there, does that in the report itself, they're talked about the underground assets not being included in the BCA. Just are you able to provide a data variance comment? Just I think that's what the councillor is getting at there. And so
Yes,
it's 2024 numbers, but does that take into account the potential overages of underestimating the underground asset state of repair?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's a great clarification. Yes, the above ground assets is what we're talking about in terms of the $17 million in 2024 figures. We have identified that we have not done that work from an in-ground perspective for the deficiency in that regard. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done there to provide information on what the deficiencies are for the in-ground, irrigation lines and all that work that's associated with that.
Councillor Moreno, anything else on the 17 million number? Like just that very specific thread, anything else there? Or okay to maybe go on a second time for some of those other pieces? Just want to finish the thought if you're...
Yeah, no, thank you for seeking that. That's where I was going because I've always heard irrigation, irrigation, irrigation. If anybody's walked that course, you know it's an issue, at least Shadoke. So happy to go back on. I have a couple more questions. Thank you.
Councillor Wang and Councillor Clark are next on our list.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation and report and the associated appendices plus the GGA PowerPoint presentation. What I didn't see or hear was how this may or may not align with the new tourism strategy, because yesterday when we received the presentation from tourism, they did speak about specific destination products. And I know I asked specifically about the golf courses, mostly because we are fresh off of the Canadian Open. And as you did say, Steve, in your opening remarks, that Kings Forest has won many, many awards around this. So what's Recreation sort of stance on how we would leverage the golf courses in potentially a tourism aspect?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair to the councillor, was able to tune into Summit GIC yesterday and understand that discussion. And it is, as some of our colleagues in tourism did mention, we do have ongoing meetings to make sure that we are working together on our respective work plans to incorporate that. One of the things that I identified within the presentation and is also within the Recreation Master Plan is the need to develop a long-term golf strategy. And within that really speaks to how it's integrated within some of our other levels and other commitments and priorities within the city, meaning the Tourism Action Plan and some of those aspects there. So when we look at the capital infrastructure too, from a golf perspective, how does that feed into attracting events and showcasing our city in that sense? So that that work is encompassed within the need to do a more fulsome long-term golf strategy to make sure that we're accommodating and really taking care of our assets and linking them to some of those opportunities that we have in the future. So that work is ongoing, but will be more defined within that long-term golf strategy.
Chair, I think I'm just trying to get Recreation and the team to potentially opine a little bit because they have done a great job to draw a line between our biodiversity, our watershed, our all of the other sort of recreation master plans, and it all seems as though it's all part of the status quo or business as usual. So I wonder, I think that will help drive any of my decision-making is to understand where staff may see the opportunity. Even though I know it's still early days and literally, Director just literally said that it's a long-term sort of thought process, that they're not there yet. But I think I'd like to really get a sense from them about how important are these assets, because just as Councillor Crutch has adequately laid out, there are lots of opportunities. But I also agree that Kings Forest is a gem within the Ward 4 community. It is a gem within the Hamilton community in the greater context. But I just want to understand where do they place that importance in our golf courses in the greater scheme of things? So I hope that I could ask that question.
Yeah, I think so. And then as long as you're okay, if the answer might be, like, if staff have opining today, but if not, maybe giving an answer as to when that will come in the recreation master plan process or when there will be a recommendation. But if there's an initial opining today, let's do it. But.
Thanks.
Perhaps I'll start, and if there's any other comments from the bench here, they can add to that. I think that's a great question, Councillor, through the chair. In terms of recreation and sport, it's really important, and it really speaks to some of our council priorities that we've committed to in terms of making sure that the City of Hamilton is seen in a great light from a sport and recreation perspective, and really from a community perspective as well. And you mentioned the fact that we've won numerous awards from a Kings Forest perspective, and as a municipal golf course going up against private operators. So it's a great feat. We have many comments on a daily basis, on a yearly basis of visitors that come to our courses and really acknowledge the work that our staff have done and really have that ability to provide feedback in a positive manner as to the work that we've done and how the course looks and how the management flows from a special events perspective. So it's really important for that. I think in the past we have had opportunities to go after some of those larger events. I must say that some of our restrictions in terms of course footprint have really hampered us in that sense, in terms of the topography of some of our courses, and specifically Kings Forest could be used for a major PGA event. However, we don't have the full requirements for it. So when we have a look at that, we have a look at the future of some of our capital needs too. It's always in our mind in terms of how we can present the city in a more favorable manner and really puff up our chest in that regard. But we also have to be cognizant of the capital infrastructure that is needed to get us to that level. So definitely within our thoughts to provide a little bit more emphasis on that piece as well as included within some of our community needs and community opportunities as well.
Through the chair, if I could just add to Steve's comments. The report and all the appendices in the presentation really was meant to provide the information from the motion that was directed towards staff. So that was our focus of bringing the information. We did anticipate that we could get further direction either today or at council to do some follow-up work. And that's what we're anticipating, that we'll be receiving direction, do some follow-up work. And council, I would say that would be part of either the golf strategy or the follow-up work that we're anticipating be receiving direction either today or on Wednesday at council.
Sorry, remind me again when the golf strategy, this long-term golf strategy is going to be started, or has it started?
Through the chair, it has not begun. 2025 is the target start date.
I think my last comment here is that it's a bit of a tale of two cities. Kings Forest being in the East End, the one and only golf course in the East End, versus or Shadoke and Badeau, Shadoke with Martin and Badeau in the West End, and I think that there's opportunity for both, but in almost very different directions. So I do want to take some opportunity to really mull on this report and to really think through and chat with the rest of my colleagues about what is the art of the possible here. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. And yeah, again, like that's what's happening here. It's just an information report today. The timeline is up to council and committee. Staff have shared what's going to happen naturally through the recreation master plan. On the speakers list, though, to understand some of the information shared, we have Councillor Clark, Councillor Jackson, and then Councillor Maureen Wilson for a second time. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. If I could ask Steve and the rest of the folks here to turn to page 10 in the presentation that speaks to course utilization. And I'm just trying to clear up a little confusion in my mind. So these are rounds of golf that are played by individuals, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Thank you. And can I inquire how many days in 2023 was Kings Forest Golf open?
Through the chair, don't have the full information at this point. We can get it for you. We can follow up for that. But typically, our golf courses are open for the full season. There's fairly a few times where the golf course within the golf season is not open. Obviously, some rain out dates, but there'd be few and far between. So there might be some delays in terms of when rounds can be had, but there wouldn't be a large number of days in which the golf course would be closed within a typical golf season.
So would it be 6 months? Is that what your season is?
Typically, through the chair, we would open, weather depending, in April, mid-April to about, over the last couple of years, it's been through mid-November.
Okay. And can I ask then, when you're looking at the rounds of golf, just for Kings Forest, how many rounds of golf were played per day?
Through the chair, so that's the difficult part in terms of having a more detailed understanding of our participants. So you could have an individual that comes in, a member that comes in and plays 2 rounds throughout the day. We could have someone that has only played half a round. So that is one of the deficiencies within our software in terms of understanding the detail of our golfers and the detail of our rounds. We do understand that when they do come in, the rounds that are actually paid for, those is what we're accounting for. So we need to do a better job in terms of our software to be able to drill down and distill what actually that individual is playing, how many times, and to provide a little bit more information on that. And that's what we hope to do in our future software that we haven't been able to do at this present time.
So again, I'm still a little confused. 35,986 rounds of golf were purchased in 2023. You've indicated that we're usually open about 7 months. So that mathematically shows up to be 171 people a day. So 171 people have purchased or played rounds. They may not have played them, but there was that number of rounds purchased in that day. Is that about right on average?
Through the chair, so when we do take a look at rounds played, it's really dependent upon pace of play as well, right? So we do have that opportunity.
Sorry, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the number of rounds that are purchased per day. Don't care about how many people play, don't care if they get tired and go home. how many rounds of golf are purchased per day. And my numbers, based on the numbers you provided, is 171 people play Kings Forest per day in 2023. So we're spending all of this money to maintain these golf courses, and we're falling behind on the maintenance of the clubhouse and other amenities, and we're having 171 customers a day. That's shocking to me, and I'm trying to understand how we rationalize that as the highest and best use. Can anyone help me? I don't think anyone will speak up because it's a really hard one to answer.
Just, Councillor Clerk, so I can help clarify your question a little bit. You're not understanding there's lots of variation. You can't know. You're just looking for the average to get a sense. You know, day one may be this, day two may be that, but overall it averages out across the year. You've done the math, 179.
Yeah, all I did was the math, 35,986. To be fair, my colleague here helped me. 7 months is what we were heard on average. Do the math, it comes out to 171 people a day.
So just comments maybe from staff on that average, and then again, getting back to, I think, the root of your question, which is highest best use there as well.
Through the chair, from the math that the councillor has indicated, that would be a correct assumption in terms of number of individuals over the course of that time period with the rounds that we have in 2023.
And I get that golf is, you got to play your 18 holes and you're trying to get as many people through in a day as possible. But that's not a very significant number of customers that we're receiving on a golf course. A preeminent golf course, Kings Forest, people brag about it, except for some minor amenities. And that's all we have playing it in 2023. No wonder we're having challenges with revenue. It's a hard one for me to get my head on. To be fair, I used to golf with my arthritis, not so good. To be honest, Chair, I wasn't not so good when I didn't have arthritis. So I understand what golf is all about, but it's really hard for me to explain to other citizens and residents in our community how we're doing all of this work for 171 customers a day. I can extrapolate it out for the other rounds if you wish, but the numbers really don't change. And so that's the one for me, Chair, that I am grappling with when we talk about these properties and our plans on how we're going to be dealing with them in the future. I just wanted to put that on the table. The numbers confused me, Steve, so I wasn't trying to set you up or anything like that. I was trying to do the math here. And I think a part of it was the Shadok rounds, that's 2 golf courses. So it's not 54,000 rounds of golf for one 18 hole, it's 2 golf courses. So that would be even less. So anyways, I thank you for being candid with me on the numbers. It is something that we are wrestling with.
No, thank you, Councillor Clark. And I think, again, thanks to staff for bringing this information forward today, prompting this discussion in response to that motion. I think it's, putting some of this information around us. Councillor Jackson, you're next on our speakers list. We haven't had a chance to hear from you yet on this report.
Thank you so much, Chair Wilson, and sincere thanks to Senior Project Manager Romus Kalasius. Outstanding report he's put together, and Manager Savor, thorough presentation. I could see why better part of a year was taken, given how busy you both are, but just an outstanding presentation in light of the direction that was given about a year ago at this time to do an assessment of the golf courses. a few questions, and since others have already got their oars in the water of what they think the future should be or shouldn't be, I'll offer some commentary quickly at the end. Overall, can I just get, again, a cursory way, Manager Savor, are the golf rounds up at our courses through you, Chair Wilson?
Through the chair to the council, yes, they have been up over the last 3 or 4 years, specifically since the pandemic as well.
Are they basically break even at the golf courses, if not turning a little bit of a profit through you, Chair Wilson?
Yes, through the chair, they definitely have been receiving a generous profit over the last couple of years as well.
Are you parking that profit in capital reserve that can someday be used if we maintain the 3 courses to upgrade whatever needs to be upgraded, including the clubhouses? The only negativity I hear from time to time, and this is from a guy who, Councillor Clark, I've never golfed. Arthritis or no arthritis, I've never golfed. So here's a guy that has, in my years on council, been an advocate for the courses. So back to my question through you, except for the clubhouses, which I hear are dated and need some tender loving care and modernization. Overall, have you put the money aside in capital reserve through you, Chair Wilson?
Through you, Chair Wilson, to the councillor, we did initially have a annual reserve that was a golf-related capital reserve that closed in 2018, 2019. From that time period, we do not have a reserve in which we're contributing those funds to. They go directly back into the levy in terms of any profit that is generated.
Oh, it goes back into the general levy to use towards budgeting at each tax time?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Oh, how lovely. Well done, golfers. Thank you. Further, in terms of the categories of golfing, juniors, seniors, regular adult, I've always been big on, especially both ends of the age spectrum, big supporter that seniors have had an opportunity to play and juniors. Can you give me some indication of those 2 categories, the popularity of them and our membership? Through you, Chair Wilson, please.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair to the councillor, we do have a wide variety of membership opportunities, adult, over 55. We also have the junior and intermediate. So one of the things that was identified in years passing when GGA Golf, Global Golf Advisors provided us with some input in the mid-2015, 2016, was to develop some pricing strategies that allowed us to capitalize on some of those interests. One of those groups was the intermediate category, so between 19 and 34. So we've seen a very, obviously the membership number in terms of the membership fee is slightly discounted. But we've seen a huge uptake in terms of the intermediate level that has really impacted our capacity. And those intermediate players will then eventually turn into adult players as well. We do have a junior program or junior membership category as well, and I think we have been working well in the last number of years to develop camps that allow us to develop junior golfers in that regard, and then give them an opportunity to move forward and to continue to play and develop in that sense. So junior development, intermediates, seniors, and couples, we've captured the whole gamut of opportunities.
Wow. Amazing, fantastic, very positive news, building young champions in junior intermediary, wonderful, providing opportunity at discounted rates for our own citizens to play a social recreational sport, fantastic. And can I just say, last question before our last comment, Chair Wilson, overall, our courses are cheaper to play around or to buy a membership versus the private operators in our city. Through you, Chair Wilson.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. There are typically initiation fees that go along with most private organizations, and we do not have those initiation fees. We have reduced or reasonable rates in terms of membership rates that allow our citizens to participate. So in short, yes, on a market rate, we are reasonably priced based on analysis in that regard.
Thank you, Manager Savor. If my time's up, put me down for a second time. I've got a closing comment. Thank you, Chair Wilson. Manager Savor, thank you for all your answers. Look, obviously, from a traditional standpoint, I think our 3 courses have been marvelous, providing recreational opportunity for our citizens of all ages. Great to see the popularity increase again from a non-golfer, but I love other sports that I participate in. Don't forget taxpayers paid for these courses, and if we are even thinking hypothetically of repurposing 1, 2, or 3 of them, obviously then it will force our citizens who enjoy golf, and maybe this is the only recreation they enjoy, of all the recreational facilities in our city that our taxes pay towards, and I don't use half of them, but I still am happy to pay for them, similar to education, where I haven't been blessed with kids, but I'm happy some of my dollars go towards the education system. If we suddenly repurpose 1, 2, 3 of them, we're going to force people in our community that can afford golf that will have to either forego playing golf, period, and or won't be able to afford private operations. So I'm getting some of my comments and or in the water in light of others already as we look to the future. Thank you, Chair Wilson.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I don't control the speakers list, but presently it looks like last word to you, Councillor Maureen Wilson.
You don't control the speakers list? Thank you, through the chair. I just want to also just expand some context here because I guess one of my challenges is, and it shall ever be thus, the static nature of some of the numbers that are presented. So if I could ask Director Savor to ensure I'm correct in some of the previous information this body has been privy to. The recommendations that are set out in the recreational master plan included major acquisition expenditures for this community over the next 10 years. They include, as identified in that plan, 2 new outdoor artificial ice facility spaces, 4 community recreation center expansions, 4 new community recreation centers, and senior center expansions. And this is from the report. At this time, the city has not currently identified budgets for these acquisitions to ensure service levels are maintained over the long term. Is that still the state of affairs, through the chair?
Through the chair, yes. I believe our plan is to come back with a full analysis and that implementation strategy that really takes a look at those capital investments and looks at opportunities to prioritize, determine funding levels, determine partnerships, and those alike.
Thank you. And through the chair, from our asset management report, it states there is a significant backlog of maintenance work identified in year 2023, totaling about $108 million. It also states it was found that total forecasted maintenance costs over the next 10 years is $258 million, which includes an outstanding backlog of work of about $108 million. To the best of your knowledge, is that still the case?
Through the chair to the council, that is correct from a recreational perspective.
Yeah. Thank you. My point in underscoring those numbers is that we're going to be forced into a deliberation about the sustainability of all of our assets. And I think in so doing, I think we have to give careful and deliberative consideration to ensuring that our future investments and our future work are addressed to ensure that all opportunities can be realized. And I really appreciate the fact that staff in their presentation and in the report identified those. We heard those today. We know that we are already in a situation of extreme heat and extreme precipitation, and that there are very, very few, if any, places of this green nature that could assist us in our need to invest in this city to deal with those realities. We also know that we have a biodiversity crisis, and there are very few opportunities for us to be intentional in a plan when we have green spaces of this open nature. To Councillor Clark's point about trying to get a sense of the number of golfers in which we're having, in terms of, I won't speak to Kings right now, in terms of Shidok, we have 36 holes needed in order to carry 18. For the last 10 years of my life, I have been very intentional in my exercise regime in which I have either run, quickly walked, or ridden the rail trail adjacent to this parcel. So it takes me, I'm down to 17 and a half minutes from home to the very top of the escarpment on my bike. I do that on average 4 mornings a week if I'm not running or walking. And I have never, ever in that 17 and a half minutes counted fewer than 50 people on that same swath of trail one way. I have never, ever counted fewer than 20 people in and around the stairs. The maximum number of people I've counted quickly in 17 and a half minutes was 325. So I guess, has perhaps COVID changed some of our patterns? Are they changing our patterns as we age? Are our recreational needs changing as our community diversifies? Absolutely. So all of those people who are engaging more so, you will see the numbers growing of passive recreation. Those numbers are growing. Those people are needing of space in which to live a life. Yesterday, with the presentation of our tourism master plan, we were told that we want to engage further with our waterfall plans and the like. We just don't have the infrastructure. We're also been told we have a shortage of green space for children in the lower city, particularly wards 2 and 3. These green spaces, and I'll only speak for Shidok, is on a transit line. It is accessible. The infrastructure is there. So I think the issue of equity when we're moving forward in consideration must be top of mind to reflect the needs, circumstances, and diversity of our community, because right now it's not reflected in this. And that will be, I really appreciate the report. I think these things have to be asked. I think there's a lot in which to answer. And I think I really appreciate the fact that staff set out those other, hinted at some of our deficiencies, but some of the other corporate policies which must guide us and inform us on how to move forward in maximizing what I think is a jewel. I know Councillor Wang often speaks to looking for revenue opportunity, the clubhouse there being underproductive, if you will, and underutilized and for that purpose, while clearly Shidok is in another ballpark. So I know I will have many discussions in the very near future with my colleagues in order to hopefully get us to a better yes and an eye in the future that is rooted in equity, rooted in environment, and rooted in maximizing the assets that we have for more people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. That brings us to the end of the speakers list. So we do have a guest at the committee, Councillor Tedison, looking to jump in, sneak on in there.
Just wanted to say that I really appreciated the report as well, and its openness and its willingness to consider flexibility around it. I am an unabashed, shameless lover of golf. I can attest that any changes would be met with great resistance from a certain section of our city. In sensing that, can I just ask Steve, in terms of growing the membership, what efforts have been made in growing the membership, and what have you seen over the past couple of years in terms of membership?
Through the chair to the councillor, membership has really grown, again, as probably a limit or an impact from the pandemic in 2020 to a sustained kind of level. The programs that we have and the program changes that we have made through membership, as I spoke to specifically around intermediate, allows that to continue to grow. We are at a limit or at a ceiling with our Kings Forest membership, as opposed to Shadok, where the membership levels are different from Kings Forest. It's more of a greens fee type of situation. Obviously, having 2 courses there does impact that. But we have seen a saturation of our membership, and we have to take that into consideration when we are providing opportunities for the general public as well. So we try to create a balance of 60-40 kind of T rates in that regard. So in short, our membership rates for Kings Forest are at that level. We have work to do for Shadok in that sense.
Okay, thanks. And then just for better understanding, if I'm a member and I go golfing, does that count as a purchase for that day?
Through the chair, that round is counted within the accumulated rounds that we reported on.
Okay, thanks. So can I just ask another question? Do you know how often each group goes off? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 11 minutes? Is it 12 minutes? 9 minutes?
Through the chair, we've worked on that. In a typical golf course, you could get down to a 9-minute interval. We've hovered around 10 to 12. 11 actually is fairly consistent, but over the last couple of years, it's been 10 to 12 in that range.
Okay, so that would probably work out then. You can maybe, if we say 11, you can get off maybe 24. If it's 4 around every 11 minutes, you can get off maybe about 25, 26, 28 people an hour? Is that about it? Is that about right?
Through the chair, that is right. We have some other adjustments that we can make at the beginning of the day, in which you don't have to have all golfers starting at the singular tee. We have a shotgun start. So that allows us to provide a little bit more opportunity, but typically that you're correct in that assumption.
Okay. And just, and I'll end it there. I just wanted to kind of clarify some things that Councillor Clark was alluding to, and just for my own understanding about how well utilized the golf courses are. I think what I'm seeing when I hear if it's 171, it's probably not exactly 7 months to the day. I would say it's less than that, counting rainouts and so forth. But I appreciate that information, and what we are and how many people we are actually serving gives me time for reflection as, again, unabashed lover of golf who plays on a regular basis. It hurts for me to think about losing something like the Martin and Beddoes courses, but I would consider that I do recognize changing trends, and there are a lot of people who are willing to maybe not play the 18 and just go for 12. And that might be some flexibility that we might exercise, and that's from a guy who would never, ever consider giving up golf courses that are treasures to our city at this point. So just saying that for the record, and thank you for letting me speak up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tussin. With that, our speakers list is exhausted. We got a lot of information today in this report committee. If individuals want to work on motions, some folks have signaled that that's their intention. That can happen. I think the next time we'll hear from staff on this, it sounds like is in the process of the rec implementation plan that's coming forward. So that's also a next step as well. It's in our hands as kind of committee and council members to take it faster than that or take it in a different direction should we choose. I think we're okay to now maybe move to the vote to receive the report. It's been moved by Councillor Maureen Wilson, seconded by Councillor Wang. And that vote's now up. As that vote is proceeding along, We are moving on to report number 2 of 7, keeping folks in kind of that context. Our next one is also a presentation. Oh, and that vote carries 6-0 on the golf course report, information report. Thank you, everyone. For our next report, which is the Hamilton's Plan for Age-Friendly Community 2023 Community Progress Report, I'm very excited to be welcoming down the very patient members, the Penelope Petrie, Chair of our Seniors Advisory Committee, and Angie Armstrong, Chair of the Age Friendly Collaborative Committee and Board of Directors with the Hamilton Council on Aging, as well as Lisa Maychek from City of Hamilton supporting this work. Really excited to be hearing about what some of your 2023 highlights are. And thanks for learning about golf with all of us as you made your way up.
Okay. Good afternoon, through the chair. I'm Lisa Maychek. I'm project manager for Age Friendly Plan with the City of Hamilton in our long-term care division. So I'm happy to be here to provide you with an update, our annual update. I'd also like to introduce, as Chair Wilson mentioned, I have co-presenters with me, Penelope Petrie, who is the chair of the City Seniors Advisory Committee, as well as the list goes on and on and on. She's a chair of the board at Sackville, member of the Hamilton Council on Aging Board. And I'd also like to introduce Angie Armstrong. Angie is our chair of our Age Friendly Collaborative Committee, as well as a board member with the Council on Aging. And again, her list goes on and on. Both are dynamo volunteers in our community. So I really want to thank you for taking the time today. And I know you appreciated the information on golf too. So we're going to proceed. So we are co-presenting. So Penelope is actually going to begin.
I thought you were. Next slide. Where are they? Okay, so a little bit of demographic information about Hamilton. As we know, seniors are the fastest growing age group worldwide. And for the first time in Canadian history, there are now more seniors age 65 plus than children under age 14. Just as a point, the senior population in Ontario is expected to double by 2041. And currently, the latest statistics say there are 183,265 adults aged 55 plus living in Hamilton, which is roughly 32% of our population. So we are a significant group. And in terms of age-friendly cities, the World Health Organization established this particular initiative, wanting cities and communities to create environments for active aging. In 2010, the Global Network of Age-Friendly Cities and Communities was established. Currently, there's a membership, as they say, of over 1,500 cities in 53 countries, covering 330 million people, and that number is growing. Communities are joining the initiative on a regular basis. And so this is our timeline. In 2023, we formed a partnership with the Council on Aging, the City of Hamilton, and the Senior Advisory Committee to work on making Hamilton an age-friendly city. In 2014, we consulted with over 700 older adults and stakeholders to develop the first plan, and the plan was endorsed by City Council that year. The 2015 Hamilton's Plan for an Age-Friendly City was certified by the World Health Organization. The plans have to go to them for certification. And so we implemented the first plan between 2015 and 2019. And we had ongoing community engagement and evaluation during that period of time. And then 2019, 2020, the second age-friendly plan was developed, and we decided that with this one that we would include people living with dementia and their caregivers as a focus of the plan. So in, is this here? So in, when was it? Yes. So in 2019, we had a broader consultation than we did in 2014 and made a greater attempt to reach more diverse communities, and over 4,000 stakeholders, including many older adults, were consulted to inform the second age-friendly plan. So now we have the 2021 to 2026, so we're right in the middle of the current implementation of the current plan. And so these are the strategic goals. We have 7: housing, transportation, information and communication, health and community services, social participation, which is recreation, learning, arts and culture, civic engagement, volunteerism and employment, and outdoor spaces. Within these goals, we have established 21 objectives and 61 actions. In 2023, we had the Age-Friendly Hamilton Community Progress Survey. We've been doing a survey every year, but this is the most recent one, and basically engaging with the community to identify initiatives, projects, programs, and success stories that align with the goals of the age-friendly plan. The age-friendly plan is a community plan. It doesn't just belong to the city. We want all of the community involved in making Hamilton age-friendly. And the survey is an attempt to create awareness about the plan because it's still not as well known as we would like it to be, and also guides organizations, groups, businesses, and the city itself to implement age-friendly projects and initiatives. And so in the 2023 Age-Friendly Hamilton survey results broadly, we have a 60% increase in survey submissions from the 2022 survey, and we received 81 success stories of projects started or finished from 62 distinct stakeholders. We expanded our outreach and input from diverse groups quite a bit. We partnered with the Red Book, which is, I don't know how familiar you are, it's run by or managed by the Hamilton Public Library, and is a source for information about programs and projects that are available and services available to citizens of Hamilton. And we've expanded our outreach with input from the different sectors, not-for-profit, public, and private.
Good afternoon to you all. Now I'm going to be, my name's Angie Armstrong, and I am the chair of the Age-Friendly Collaborative Committee, and notably the word is collaborative. As you can see by the chart here, we have really looked at our survey this year and tried to engage the community at large. And the health and the community services, you'll see that there were 27, because health is very important for the aging community. We've had 27% of our community that have responded back. Social participation, you've noticed, is pretty high. It's 32%. We want to get our aging community out and participating, getting them active. So you'll see that that is actually the largest group that, as far as our submissions are concerned. But we tried to touch everything. Now, if you have noticed on there as well, the smallest group that we got feedback from was outdoor spaces. And in listening to your afternoon with recreation and golfing and all of those things, I think that's something that the council should maybe look at and incorporate in our aging community into any decisions that you make. So here is another chart just identifying where the submissions came from. And you'll notice on here that as far as our public or education component is concerned, we really want to try and bring that level up. There's only 4%, but we're able to do some outreach for. The private sector, we were very fortunate this year because this is our third submission of the survey. We really have reached out to the private community, because that is something, if we do not engage the private community, it's great that we have all of these social services and social agencies, but really we are a community that has the income. We have to spend. You're getting our money. We need to have you participating and collaborating with us as well. And now just moving on to some of our success stories. I won't go through them all, but you do have the presentation. So if you look at housing, housing is a major topic. Okay, you're excited. It said the city of Hamilton first. Okay, so you've noticed that we have had through the there's a number of different funds, but through the Rapid Housing Initiative as well, that from a federal level, we've money is definitely coming in for housing. But it does state here that Hamilton secured $93.5 million from the federal government under the Housing Accelerator Fund to develop 2,675 housing units over 3 years. And I just want to mention that I'm also involved with co-op housing. I facilitate, I'm a certified facilitator for the co-op sector. So when I see things like that, it's very important, and I hope that the sector and the city can work a little closer together with our housing. Okay, this funding does support diverse housing initiatives as well. And again, our community here has changed. We have a very diverse community here in Hamilton, and it's a matter of how we're going to partner with these communities as far as housing is concerned. And multi-generational living, families now, you'll notice 3-4 generations are living in the same household. How are you going to build to accommodate those individuals? Because that's very important. Another success story we're looking, and this is all part of our goals. I won't go through every single one of them, but transportation. You know, are aware that with currently with the initiative, I think, for the rapid transit system that is going to be coming into Hamilton, how is that going to impact our seniors as well? But we do support 30 dedicated volunteers in Hamilton, Burlington, with Cycling Without Age. It's a program that gives older adults the chance to enjoy bike rides. And I think there was something recent where we did close off part of, I think it was King Street this year for families. That was great. So things like that are really important. And in 2023, the program expanded its outreach to care facilities and community events and provided, as you can see, the rickshaw rides. Those were actually very interesting. I'll just touch information and communication. Voice Canada community engagement platform launched some studies for seniors and caregivers. And I think, again, that's very important because we tend to forget as we age that we have to have caregivers. They need to be working very closely with us. So this global community shares its insights to shape age research and outcomes. And we are working very closely with McMaster University. Okay.
Thanks, Penelope and Angie. So as Angie's been going through all these examples, in the actual, it's Appendix A of the information report is our community progress report. So you'll see the 80 success stories that were submitted through the survey. We're just highlighting a few. So here we are at Goal 4, which is Health and Community Services. The Hamilton Council on Aging received funding to facilitate these workshops. So the Seniors for Change workshops empower Hamilton older adults with practical skills and knowledge. The workshops are actually led and facilitated by older adults. A lot of them are retired teachers or retired healthcare professionals. And there's a 6 weeks positive aging series and a 3-week navigating the healthcare series. And then also their Let's Get Moving workshops. And the Let's Get Moving workshops have been around for many years, and they still continue to be successful. And they incorporate the let's take a bus, let's go for a walk, let's ride a bike, and a newer one is let's drive a car. So as we age, we haven't had any driver's lessons for many years, so it's sort of a brush up on those. In 2023, the program worked with 40 organizations to deliver 89 workshops to 1,090 seniors. Goal 5, social participation. So this is, and we do have our city's recreation division, senior services, more specifically sitting on our age-friendly collaborative committee. So this was a success back in 2023, where a resource guide was developed specifically for older adults on all types of recreational and social opportunities for seniors in the community. And then there was also a large campaign for dissemination of the guide, both digitally and in print version. This is a real success of what we do as a collaborative committee, both the Seniors Advisory Committee and the Hamilton Council on Aging is civic engagement. So here's a picture here of members of our Seniors Advisory Committee at our Seniors Kickoff event this year, which we hosted over 650 older adults, many of which were from diverse communities. And I'm going to say the key to that was creating partnerships with leads for those communities, getting that word out, because just a few people can't get that word out. You got to build the collaboration. So yes, we had over 650 people, our older adults, and then we had 70 exhibitors from all sectors, not-for-profit, public and private sectors, providing information on programs and services that are available for older adults across the community. We also offered various presentations, one specifically, or actually I'll mention two. One was a update from Hamilton Police Services on the latest frauds and scams that are taking over, especially our seniors are targeted with those. I've actually had personal family experience with that, and right away I was like, go to the police. Another one was we actually had an engagement session with consultants that are experts in EDI, or equity, diversity, and inclusion, to really engage with the older adults that attended and make them begin thinking that, we are a very diverse community, and this is what makes us diverse. And let's take a look at ourselves and how we can, as individuals, make it a more, accepting of everyone that lives in our community. So that was really well received. Okay, the last one, because this is our 7th goal, outdoor spaces. This submission came from our Parks and Cemeteries, staff from Parks and Cemeteries with the city. Parks and Cemeteries Capital Improvements Project has revitalized city's outdoor spaces by upgrading 5 kilometers of asphalt paths, installing 8 curb-free parking spaces for enhanced accessibility, and connecting pathways to amenities such as washroom facilities at Green Acres Park. Additionally, park lighting was also installed, improving safety and visibility along the pathways. And of course, that's age-friendly for older adults, but it's age-friendly for everyone. Moving on to some of our achievements that this year, really proud to announce that, this is included in the information report. I believe it's Appendix B. It's our age-friendly equity, diversity, inclusion strategy. So we partnered with consultants to develop this over the course of the year. The first part was to meet with our age-friendly collaborative committee. Then we moved on to a community consultation event. And then again, we did the engagement at the seniors kickoff in June. So in July of this year, the strategy was finalized, and it includes 14 priority areas, as well as 11 indicators of success for creating an equitable, diverse, and inclusive community for older adults. What the strategy will do moving forward is guide our work create a communications and engagement strategy where we can reach other diverse communities. We will be in 2026 doing another consultation phase for the third age-friendly plan. So this strategy is going to guide the work that we do. Another success, which I have to give a lot of congratulations to the Seniors Advisory Committee, is a communication survey for older adults. One of the working groups decided that, you know what, the consultation that was done for the age-friendly plan back in 2019 was a while ago. So we need to learn now, especially with the pandemic, what are the current ways older adults receive information, what are the preferred methods of communication. So this survey was launched back in March. I think it was over a 2-month period. It was available online through Engage Hamilton, but also print surveys were disseminated to all of our seniors centers and seniors clubs, and through the library, through our municipal centers. But we also got it out digitally through all of our community partners, which included the diverse community partners. The results of that survey, we created an infographic which is included with the information report. It's an infographic on some of the key results. And just to highlight one key result was email was the big way older adults get information, as well as local newspaper. So another success story, again, led by the Seniors Advisory Committee. We created a City Lab partnership, and McMaster students were brought on to help us develop this guide. The first housing guide that we developed was back in 2015, so we really thought it was important we updated the guide. So this new guide is more comprehensive. There's a self-assessment checklist for individuals, whether they're looking at moving or downsizing, whatever the situation may be, but it really gives the individual or couple a great resource to refer to if they are looking at moving or downsizing. So as I mentioned, our EDI strategy will help develop our communication engagement strategy to, when we move into 2025, create more awareness with diverse groups and enhance community participation when it comes to our age-friendly collaborative committee. We know that, we have really broadened our age-friendly collaborative community, but there's still more work to be done. And then again, the EDI strategy will help us or support the work that we do when we are out doing our consultation work in 2026 to develop our third age-friendly plan. Another key piece of work that we did this year. So in 2023, we brought back the Seniors at Risk Collaborative after the pandemic. This was a collaborative that was established just before the pandemic, based on the need for many organizations in the community that deal with those very high-risk older adults. Another reason it was brought back in 2023 was Catholic Family Services of Hamilton closed their doors, unfortunately, and they really were that organization that dealt with those really high-risk, vulnerable older adults and seniors. The Ontario Health took the majority of the program services that were offered by Catholic Family Services, and they're now responsible. The three organizations that are responsible are Good Shepherd, St. Matthew's House, and the Alzheimer's Society. So we're happy that those services are continuing. But one thing the Seniors at Risk we're realizing, and the Seniors at Risk Collaborative now has about 40+ community groups and organizations that are members, is the rise in elder abuse, various types of elder abuse. Not necessarily the referrals would come through as this is an elder abuse situation, but through the assessment and case management, they would definitely recognize that there's a situation here and we need to be doing something about it. But a lot of organizations that sit at the table, they're kind of in their silos, not really sure how to navigate it. So as we facilitated a survey to the organizations that are members of the Seniors at Risk, and it came back that, yeah, an elder abuse network was definitely needed. So this is something that we're going to be definitely working on as we move forward. Another thing that we'll be doing again this year, at the end of this year, we'll be launching our survey again to learn of all the great success stories that are happening in Hamilton this past year. And then continual collaboration with our community partners, city staff, to implement the recommendations that are in our current plan from 2021 to 2026. And that is it. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation and for that update. I know lots of committee members are very excited. Councillor, I just need a mover and a second to receive the presentation. Yeah, I figured. Councillor Jackson, as fast as possible, hand is up. I'll second that. That vote's coming up now for committee members to receive the presentation, but if you can do two things at once and you'd like to get on the speakers list, please feel free to signal that maybe as you're voting as well. We do have two folks on the speakers list right now. The vote to receive the presentation, sorry, I haven't voted thumbs up. I apparently can't do two things at once. But just so we know, so that carries 6-0, big surprise there. Thank you very much. Councillor Wang, Councillor Maureen Wilson, and Councillor Clark are on our speakers list for some questions at this moment in time.
Thank you, Chair. There is so much work that has gone into this. I don't know where you guys get the energy to do all of this work. So thank you very much for your hard work on this. I am particularly happy to hear about the seniors at risk. I really only interact more closely with the Chinese seniors that are in that particular group, mostly because I can speak Mandarin with them, right? So I genuinely appreciate the amount of work, and I also firmly believe that the Elder Abuse Network is highly needed. My question through you, Chair, to our esteemed delegates. As you all know, we are in a housing crisis. As you also know, is that many seniors may be overhoused, meaning that they have already paid off their mortgage. They're in a big, beautiful 5-bedroom house, for example. And what we have also heard is that there is social isolation amongst the senior demographic. Is there an opportunity, or have you considered the opportunity of combining goal 1 of housing and goal, I think it's 4, of social participation? Is there any way of participating or creating a potential group that can help with finding solutions for that of housing, that of social participation? What we have heard in the media is that there are lots of different models from Scandinavian countries where they might speak about house sharing or anything like that. I don't know. I'm asking because goal 1 and goal 4 are very prominent, especially goal 4, the social participation, in your survey results, and goal 1 is highly on top of our list because of what we're in the current situation today. So I'm just trying to mash the two together. And I wonder, has your group thought about an age-friendly sort of direction in that sort of vein? So through you, Chair.
You go first. How do you get this on? Through the chair, I know that McMaster University has a program, or where they match up graduate students with older adults who would like a little bit of extra help around the home, and it gives the graduate student a place to live at a reduced rate and social connection for the older adult. So I don't know whether, the city or some other organization would like to look into something like that. I think there'd be a lot of vetting involved. I don't know how difficult it would be, but that's one solution that I know of that is happening in Hamilton.
Excellent.
The other thing is there is an initiative in Hamilton. It's called Aging in Hamilton Together, with Dr. Ellen Ryan. She is a retired McMaster professor, and it is all around co-housing. The work they do is really around education. And the other thing is in the housing guide, the new housing guide that I mentioned previously, it talks about different types of housing. So whether it's an older adult using that as a resource guide, their families looking at it, it gives them the different, and multi-generationals is included as well. So for what the work that we do, that's what we have done to date. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there, but nice to like you mentioned, Counselor, that, wow, how do you do all this, right? And it is sometimes like there's so much we want to do, and it's just, we need more resources, we need more people. Like, it's just, there's so many things that we want to do. I think the seniors kickoff and other engagement events that we do, that we participate in, we see so many different types of exhibitors there that can offer that type of information to older adults. Because I think, especially when people are getting older and they're like, oh, I'm having a hard time managing this house, I don't need this space anymore, but what do I do? So for example, there are a real estate specialists out there that have a certification to work with seniors. So it's not just about selling the home, it's about the whole downsizing piece. It's about, where do you want to live? Do you want to move to a retirement home? Do you, maybe it's going to a long-term care. So I think actually the work that we do is trying to get that information to older adults for them to better help make a decision. So that's my input. And Angie, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Yes, thank you for that question, and through the chair. There are a few initiatives that I am aware of that are happening. First of all, through the co-op sector, which is the co-op, through the Golden Horseshoe Cooperative Network, I do both at the national and the local level. We are looking at where co-ops were built initially 40 years ago. If they have the land space, they're looking at building, if they have it, one-bedroom units. Most of these units were built with 2 and 3 and 4 bedrooms for families 40 years ago. 40 years later, these people are retiring, and there's nowhere for them to go. We can't move. We can't sort of tell them to move out. So what do? So that is one area that they're looking at. Secondly, as far as co-housing is concerned, I think that is something, but that's partnering with young people. So that's something else that I'm a little bit aware of. I think that's happening in Toronto more so than here in Hamilton, where they're, a young person who's looking to move can move in. But of course, there's going to have to be some security measures made, because we don't want someone to go in and be, so vulnerable police checks and all those things might have to change to the way that we do that business. And just to mention here, as far as our diverse community is concerned here in Hamilton, St. Matthew's House, as you all are aware, is building the 15 apartments for Black and Indigenous seniors. So that's something that I'm also involved with here. So, and as far as social participation and seniors are concerned, the Afro-Canadian Caribbean Association here has aligned youth with seniors. So they get a call every week to find out how they're doing. We provide meals for them. And there are different activities. I think just recently they did an activity to get the seniors out to paint and sip at the art gallery. Nice. So it was a beautiful evening. They could, learn how to paint and all those kinds of things. So, there are things that we can do, but we have to be forward thinking. Because we're getting older, we're not dead mentally. Okay. So that's just some things that I know about, and I know that's something that I have worked on. I have developed a workshop on aging in place and also on multi-generational living. So those are things that I'm very focused on as well.
Excellent. All right.
Thank you, Councillor Wang.
Thank you.
We have Councillor Maureen Wilson, Councillor Clark, and Councillor Jackson on our speakers list. The time is 4:16 p.m.
I will pass. Thank you.
That wasn't okay, no, thank you. Councillor Clark, just trying to help us keep in context the whole meeting's agenda today. Really appreciate this presentation.
Thank you, and I'm not going to pass. Development of a Hamilton Elder Abuse Prevention Network. Can you explain a little bit more about how you're going to make that known? In my ward, Ward 9, Upper Stony Creek, I have spoken to many seniors. Some have admitted that they've been caught. by family members, which for me is shocking, but it does happen. The human condition is unpredictable. And I'd be interested in doing what I can to educate seniors in my ward about what to be careful about.
I've got two answers to that question through the chair. So in your particular ward, we could definitely arrange for some sort of a forum to bring in Hamilton Police Services, like an event type, to educate your constituents. In terms of the Elder Abuse Prevention Network, it's more of a network for organizations and groups in the community that support seniors who are experiencing elder abuse. We need to give them the education and the resources so they can better support the seniors that they are serving. That's the idea of the prevention network. It's not necessarily a hotline for seniors to call. It's more of a network for organizations and groups, and to provide them with the supports so they can better support the seniors they serve.
Yeah, I think your suggestion would be very, very helpful in my ward, having the experts come and speak to the residents in the ward. I have heard some horrific things that have happened, and it's bothered me greatly. And the fear that I have is a senior living alone and not knowing what to do. They know it's happening, but they're afraid of living alone. So the family member is still there. And it's very disconcerting to learn that someone's savings account has been emptied because someone stole their card and had their password. And it's just little things like that that we can help educate seniors to be very careful about. Anyways, I think the work that you're doing is great. Not that well, actually I am almost a senior now, 1 year away. But I will yield the floor now to someone who should be ordained, if ever, Tom Jackson, the saint for seniors. I could see that happening. You have the floor.
Chair Wilson and everyone, I want you to know this was not rehearsed. All right, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Clark. I know there's a genuineness in there, and I really appreciate it. But listen, the focus now, Penelope Petrie, Angie Armstrong, and Project Manager Lisa Maychuk, every year cannot thank you folks enough for what you do. And I look at 1,600 cities around the world. I gotta believe 10, 11 years ago, we were one of the first out of the gate to be age-friendly. Congratulations, City of Hamilton, for embarking upon that important journey for our seniors and our older adults. Have always loved the collaboration between Hamilton Council on Aging, Seniors Advisory Committee, and the City of Hamilton, and all the other partners as well. A couple of quick questions. Last year, if I recall, Lisa, you folks had a special project on dementia. Any particular special project this year that either SAC, Hamilton Council on Aging, yourself, project manager, are working on? If memory serves me right, I recall that dementia, and I believe you brought in a particular guest speaker as well, that was a special project for SAC. Through you, Chair Wilson.
So yeah, we had, I can't remember her name now, but she is retired from the Alzheimer's Society. She was the executive director. And the reason we brought in the Alzheimer's Society last year was because we were presenting an update with Age Friendly, but the real key piece is that this current plan embeds dementia-friendly recommendations, which is very unique. I'm not even aware of any other in Canada that has that. And the reason we did that was the Hamilton Council on Aging received funding years ago to develop a dementia-friendly plan. But rather than have two separate plans, because we're trying to be inclusive, let's embed those recommendations into the age-friendly plan. So Mary was here because she was, I think her name was Mary. Yeah, Mary. There we go.
Very good, Lisa.
She was yes, 55, but I still got it. Anyway, she was instrumental in that project. So that's why we wanted her present today. So in terms of current projects, the Hamilton Council on Aging did receive some funding. I believe it's a dementia-friendly series. Yeah, but I do know the Alzheimer's Society is providing their support to those living with dementia and their caregivers. The programs are phenomenal, but something that they are doing that they receive provincial funding for is educating those services out there. So the frontline workers at recreation centers, the tellers at the bank, anyone that is dealing with older adults wherever they go, to learn and understand how to best provide customer service to someone that's living with dementia.
Excellent.
So yeah, so that I just wanted to announce that that's a great program, and I know that our city's recreation division, specifically senior services, some staff have been trained there, as well as staff with HSR.
Excellent, Lisa. Quickly, when's the awards night? You got the date at the tip of your tongue?
Yep, October 15th.
October 15th at Michelangelo. At Michelangelo again?
Michelangelo's 5 p.m.
Good, thank you.
The chair.
And any comments or any discussions on seniors' facility expansions? Of course, Mountain Wise, Sackville. Is there any discussion about the facilities themselves that I know seniors absolutely love to venture out to? It's a day outing for them, social, recreational activity, healthy living, being with a support group, etc. Any talk about that that you can maybe update us on, whether it's Sackville or anywhere else, through you, Chair Wilson?
Through the chair, yeah, currently no. There was years ago a feasibility study at Sackville.
Correct.
Director
Herstek,
or Savor, I'm not sure, maybe able to comment on that, but nothing currently. But definitely there is the need, because even registration began today, and I think Penelope mentioned to me that a large majority of the program is already full.
Wow, that's sensational. Last question, budget. What's the current budget that you folks operate under? Please.
Not much.
Oh my goodness. Oh, all right. Senior Administrator Odiarte's taking notes. No, in terms of the age-friendly, the kickoff in June, the awards night, just give me some handle on your budget overall.
Sure. So the senior strategy, I am the sole staff person for the senior strategy. So that would be my wage. Part of the strategy is we fund the Hamilton Council on Aging for age-friendly work, age-friendly projects, and that's $40,000 a year.
$40,000, okay.
Yeah. Then there's other pieces to the budget, which, the seniors kickoff, seniors awards.
I could take it offline with you then, Lisa,
Yeah,
if we need to.
Yeah, it gets in, but an increase, I think we received a little bit of an increase this year.
Okay.
But the seniors kickoff is pretty much sponsorship drives it.
Wow.
And because of the increase of costs with events now, the seniors awards, we have to get sponsorship to subsidize the ticket cost. And the reason we do that is, simply because the expenses have gone up, and we want to ensure that the ticket price is affordable for everyone.
Outstanding.
So,
That's great.
it's a balance. It's a balancing act, yeah.
Chair Wilson, I just want to finish by thanking Project Manager Maychuk. Please, members of committee, if you can get there on October 15th, there'll be over 600 easily. And budget-wise, I'll have my own discussions with Senior Administrator Odiarte that Lisa reports to, because if there's any gaps there that we could collectively or individually help out with, I'm open-minded to it. Thanks, Chair Wilson.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Next on our speakers list, Councillor Cratch with some questions.
Indeed, and I want to make sure I listened to what everybody else had to say and listened to your presentation and reviewed it. And as the Ward 2 City Councillor, the thing I think I end up saying at most meetings I go to, or when I talk about seniors, One of the things I focus a lot on is seniors with disabilities, because in downtown Hamilton, we have a disproportionate number of seniors with disabilities. We know that in Ontario, we have probably per capita more folks with disabilities than any other place in Ontario, here in Hamilton. And we know that most of those seniors with disabilities are living kind of in and around the downtown core because it's more affordable for them, frankly, in some cases. What work do you see as an opportunity for you folks to be doing to lead around safety initiatives? So what I hear from seniors when I knock on apartment doors and talk to people is maybe they're hard of hearing, maybe they have vision issues, maybe they're just moving a bit more slowly than they used to move. And so we have done things like put in pedestrian intervals sometimes to give people a bit more space and time. But like, what kind of advocacy do you think we can be doing to make our streets safer? Because I think vulnerable road users, and I think those are kids, right? Those are seniors. Those are people with disabilities. And when we get one of those groups overlapping, it gets scarier and people become more vulnerable. So seniors with disabilities, to me particularly, are an extremely vulnerable group, and I represent quite a number of them. And so do you see a place or a space in coming work to really advocate for that and have a huge push? Because I think many, many advocates in our city, cycling and pedestrian advocates right now, are doing a lot of that heavy lifting. And if we had everybody in our community coming together talking about the safety of our downtown spaces to make sure everybody could get around here accessibly, safely, and feeling good about being part of our communities, what a joy that would be.
Through the chair. So definitely in agreement. And I'm almost wondering if this might be a project and partnership with Age Friendly, the Seniors Advisory Committee, and the Accessibility Advisory Committee. We have done various projects throughout the years. One was around pedestrian crossovers and signalized intersections. You know, older adults do move a little more slowly across those intersections. So that's why we thought it was really important to educate them around how to properly use the intersections. We did gait assessments, to let them know that when you're walking by yourself with nothing in your hands, it's going to take you this long. But when you have 2 grocery bags in your hand, it's going to take you this long. So, that's the type of thing that we can do as an age-friendly initiative, is various projects. I'm trying to think of some of the other projects. The Hamilton Council on Aging in there. Let's learn to drive. Let's take a walk. Let's ride a bike. It's all over. Let's get moving. It's all around education on how to properly use a bike, how to the rules of the road with a car. So I like your idea, and I think it's a great project idea. And then I think further consultation with those that would be, open to taking it on is something that we need to do.
Thanks. I think that as a project, that would be a beneficial project especially for councillors, maybe to get involved in the lower city in wards 1, 2, 3, specifically where we're seeing a lot more road accidents, near misses. We're seeing a lot of that stuff happening on a regular basis, and where we just know, if you look across the city where it's more dense and it's more difficult for people to get around. And I think you've done a lot to advocate on behalf of seniors. And I think an advocacy project around this would be amazing to bring more attention to it, because I think it would help inform some of the equity concerns I'm trying to raise here at City Council, to ensure that we're not just thinking about the assets we have, but thinking about who uses those assets and who gets to use them safely, right? Not everybody gets the same access to those assets. And some, as you know, who live and rent their homes especially, feel trapped, don't have a lot of mobility, can't move around, would like maybe to move to a different community, be close to kids or close to family members. Can't do that because of the way rents are, so are stuck in a place where frankly they feel terrified or isolated. And as soon as the snow flies, that goes up, right? So how do we make sure that we're doing this in an equitable way? I will just send an email right now to you, Lisa, and I'll copy councillors Wilson and Narendra Nan, so we can start to maybe have a conversation about what we can all do together to make this better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gretsch. I'm not seeing anyone else on our speakers list. Thank you so much. Apologies, Councillor Maureen Wilson.
No, thank you. Through the chair, I really appreciate, thank you for your delegation, of course, and for your commitment, which is ongoing. I'm really appreciative of Councillor Gretsch's comments, and I will be not as diplomatic. We need your help also. We need your lived experience to help us in what is forever an uphill battle into making our streets safer. Because we know, I can speak as a daughter and as a public servant in my conversations with residents and my parents who sometimes feel isolated because as they age, the streets, the traffic is, the cars are bigger, the trucks are bigger, and it's moving very quickly. And they almost feel that they have lost their right to their neighborhood. And we know that that can lead to socialization. We know that when you stop moving your body, doesn't matter the pace, but when you stop moving that body, it accelerates our aging. And so if you could make space and time to join particularly the lower city representatives in those discussions, it would be greatly appreciated, because I know I'm having those discussions on a weekly basis with residents who feel they have lost their right to the city. If I could just pivot slightly also to the issue of housing. Yesterday, in this chamber, we had a very difficult conversation about how to move forward in dealing with a housing crisis and a homelessness crisis. And we know that seniors over the age of 65, over 40% of chronic homeless people are seniors. And in your work, I'm wondering where you see a place for yourself in the advocacy, in joining again all of us here with the Ontario government and others for more dignified, appropriate, and varied and affordable housing stock, through the chair.
Yeah, I think, sorry, thank you for that question through the chair. That is an excellent question to raise. And I think that what we would like to do is to take that back to the council, to the Hamilton Council on Aging, and maybe take that and discuss that a little further. Under our goal 1, which is housing, the partners that we have on that, not just one of the partners that we've recently brought on in the last year, one of the gold champions, is from the co-op housing sector. So they can bring their perspective to that group, but I think it's something that we really have to talk more about and have some input from what is already out there and how we can work collaboratively together.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you again for your presentation.
To the chair, if I could just say one more thing. I think it's about, and this is what we've done, we've really built our age-friendly collaborative committee. So we've got everyone, not everyone, we have still work to do, but we have a lot sitting at the table. And as Angie mentioned, we've got the cooperative sector there. We've got staff from our housing division. We've got social housing representatives. We've got staff from the Hamilton Community Legal Clinic. So I think what you're talking about around advocacy, everyone there needs to come to the table. It's just not the age-friendly piece. The Hamilton Council on Aging does a lot of advocacy work. They need to be at the table too. So I'm I'm brainstorming a little bit out loud here, but we'd be happy to sit down and have a conversation for sure.
Thank you. And thank you all. I think the reason there's been so much discussion and interest is because what you're doing overlaps. Your collaborative approach is really reflecting community priorities. I know I got to leave this meeting soon to go to a meeting about implementing the dementia-friendly community pilot in Dundas with some of the partner organizations there. So what you've been doing certainly lines up with all of our work. I'm not seeing anyone else on the speakers list. So with a big thank you from the committee and the chair, I think you folks can return back to your seats. I don't think we have more questions, and we'll receive that report as our next activity as a committee. Thank you again for coming out and sharing all the great things that you've been up to over 2023 and what's on the horizon for 2024. Thank you. Councillor Jackson, are you also looking to move the report? I'm okay to second that if we're okay to keep things consistent, and unless there's additional conversation, we can move directly to the vote. And that's carries 6-0, carrying on the trend for the day. Just to check in for committee, it is 4:37 p.m. We have 5 reports left on our agenda. The next 2 reports are consent items, and then we have 3 discussion items. We have a 9.1, which is the Hamilton Veterans Committee minutes, and 9.2, which is the Snow Angels program update. Similar to AFNA this morning, if we could do one motion for both of them, but we'll do discussion periods separately. Councillor Wang, Councillor Maureen Wilson, are you okay to move and second both of those? Do we have anyone who'd like to speak or join the speakers list for 9.1, the Hamilton Veterans Committee minutes? Moving on to 9.2, this is the Snow Angels program update. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Jackson.
Just quickly, I thank Director Bumer and Manager Brimley for the report. This was the first time we went in the new direction, as you recall, Chair Wilson, to offer up $450 to those that were eligible. Just a couple of quick questions. First of all, will the $111,000 that we had put aside that wasn't utilized, I just want to make sure, in light of the milder winter we had this past winter, that full amount of the budget will stay in place going forward to 24-25. Through you, please.
Oh, sorry, Stuart, it looks like your mic just went out right as you started speaking there.
Sorry about that. Through the chair, Stuart Boomer, Director of Ontario Works, Healthy and Safe Communities. To the councillor's question, yes, the budget going forward will be the same for the 24-25 winter that we're working with.
Excellent, good to hear. Quickly, I see that 35%, 67 applied, you approved 44, 35% were deemed ineligible. That's unfortunate. I can talk offline as to why that was the case, because I want as many seniors as possible, those with disabilities, low income, to qualify for this program at wintertime. I was pleased to see 86% were over 65, 71% were single, no surprise to me, 86% low income applicants. That's wonderful to hear. So I guess just basically in light of the milder winter, there wasn't the uptake, but again, I'm just a bit concerned that 35% were denied because, again, this program is about helping seniors, those with low income, those with disabilities, stay in their homes as long as possible if in the event they don't have the ability to clear the snow in wintertime. Maybe just a quick response from Director Bumer on those that were deemed ineligible, please.
Through the chair to the councillor's question, happy to provide more detail to the councillor if required. However, I can briefly state that there's a range of common factors. We have some cases where individuals don't follow up with required information, whether it's confirmation of their income level, et cetera. In other cases, their income level exceeds the eligibility maximum that's established, which is the low income measure. So those are the 2 main areas, but happy to provide more detailed information if that's helpful.
Perfect. I'll have my own off to the side meeting with Director Bumer. Thanks, Chair Wilson.
Thank you. Any other questions on 9.2? Okay, last chance. Questions 9.2, 9.1. Not seeing a flurry of hands. Those were moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Maureen Wilson. And we're able to move to a vote. And that carries. We have 3 discussion items and then some closed session minutes before we are done today. For our next item, 10.1, this is the Hamilton Fire Department Next Generation 911 Public Safety Answering Point Contingency Routing Agreement. Could I get a mover and a seconder to put the report on the floor? Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Cameron Kretsch. Is there, I just want to make sure I'm not, is there any discussion on today's report? Contingency agreement with St. Catharines in case our 911 routing goes down. Not seeing anyone jumping to the speakers list. Is committee okay if we proceed with the vote? Okay. Thank you. That carries 6-0. Next up on our agenda, sorry, in different places, is the Rosedale Tennis Club Incorporated loan request. Do we have a mover and a seconder to put this report on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Wang and Councillor Kretsch. Are there any discussions or questions about this item? Yes, Councillor Wang.
I bring some regrets from Councillor Nan because Councillor Nan is currently representing us at FCM at several board meetings today, so she was unable to move this particular item, but we're both very supportive of the Rosedale Tennis Club, and as you can see from the report, staff feel confident that they can handle the increase to their loan. And to tell you the truth, I saw their bubble this past weekend. It is beautiful. They have already started to fulfill their waiting list. They are already taking new members. And so I also feel confident that they will be able to fulfill this particular loan request.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Pausing to see if there's anyone else on our speakers list, but I'm not currently seeing any flurry of motion. I think we can move to a vote. And thanks to our clerk's team, who's so ready to go with those votes. Wow, and the fastest yet, that carries 6-0. Thank you, everyone. Next up is item 10.3. This is program manager scheduling and attendance management in paramedic services. Would we be able to get a mover and a seconder for this report? Thank you, Councillor Wang. I'm happy to second that. The report's on the floor. Is there anyone who has any questions or comments with respect to this report? Councillor Clark.
Thank you. So I'm trying to understand the need for a new position. Please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Wilson, if I could, I'd just give a quick summary of the background to this, and hopefully that will explain some of the questions in the process. For the listeners, I'm Mike Sanderson. I'm the Chief of the Hamilton Paramedic Service. This report addresses an ever-increasing challenge in managing both the attendance expectations of an increasingly large unionized paramedic workforce, as well as the support, direction, and guidance of our scheduling requirements. Our service now has 450 full and part-time paramedics. That's an increase of 170 full-time equivalent staff over the last 10 years. Our 10-year strategic plan indicates further increases to maintain service levels over the next several years. Just a few weeks ago, at the Audit, Finance, and Administration Committee, Human Resources reported on corporate-wide attendance challenges, and that report identified that our paramedic service as a division had a high short-term disability, long-term disability, and WSIB rates. And we've recognized the need to develop better strategies to improve attendance at work. We've created dedicated workplace wellness supervisor, a peer support team development, utilization modified duties, and other related activities, but it remains that absent time is both an expense and an operational challenge. Historically, going to the councillor's question, we've had a commander, one of our frontline commanders, perform attendance management reviews, interviews, and trend evaluation, really as a side of the desk issue, in addition to their normal role of planning, organizing, directing, and leading frontline supervisor and paramedic activities. That same commander has also been responsible for supervising and directing an increasingly complex scheduling process with that increasing workforce. Aside from the fact that this commander is planning to retire in the near future, and there will be a need to transition knowledge to new staff, the volume of work and the expectations for the position is just not sustainable. Doing the commander activities as well as managing the scheduling and managing attendance just is too much for one individual. The commander needs to be separated into two distinct roles, a commander focused on frontline supervisor and paramedic workforce activities and support, while the second individual, the new individual, should be focused entirely on the process and the issues of attendance management, trending, tracking, liaison with human resources staff, and managing the very complex scheduling requirements that we have within our department. The first request from this report is that Council approve the in-year addition of the one full-time equivalent for a program manager responsible for scheduling and attendance management within the paramedic service. If we've identified in the report the funding process for that and how it will be funded through operational activities and or other funding resources. The related costs going through into 2025 will be funded 50% from tax stabilization reserve and from the tax operating level in subsequent years through the provincial land ambulance service grant and the municipal tax levy. The second part of the report deals with human resources. And on the human resources side, we engaged with them in 2021 to review the return to work processes and to discuss our opportunities for improvement. We agreed with human resources that increasing the provided return to work staff resources from a partial role, which HR had provided, essentially half of that individual's full-time workload, to a dedicated full-time role on a temporary basis would be beneficial. And that change was initiated in January 2022 on a temporary basis for 2 years, funded from the Paramedic Service operating budget. Our experience with this, while it was helpful, it does not do the trending, analysis, the tracking of meetings, the reporting activities that's being performed on the side of the paramedic staff, and which will be performed by the requested program manager. It just isn't sufficient in terms of the activity to manage the increasing attendance challenges. Instead, on the HR side, their role includes the receipt of the medical documentation, the liaison and coordination with physicians, the WSIB, the long-term disability, the review of medical necessity, modified duty accommodations and placement, third-party reviews, and involvement in medical documentation that has confidentiality aspects. Corporate policy limits the allocation of a temporary full-time role to a maximum of 2 years. This temporary full-time position is now approaching the end of that allowed 2 years, and because the need for that role, it continues to be there, it's continuing. This report requests that the allocation of one full-time equivalent to human resources return in the activities. So return to work services was a full-time equivalent allocated to supporting the paramedic service needs. So the report for funding for human resources is supported from the paramedic service operating budget through gapping and efficiencies. We've done that for the last 2 fiscal years within our operating budget, and that approach would be maintained. It's actually 2 different positions that we're talking about. One that's being provided from human resources, moving that from half-time to full-time permanent on an ongoing basis. And because the workload on a single commander to manage commander and operational activities, as well as manage the scheduling and the attendance activities, is just too much for one individual to handle, given the size of our workforce, the complexities that we're dealing with, and the ongoing attendance challenges. So thank you for the question, Councillor, and please answer any of the further questions.
Councillor Clark, back to you.
So when you mention human resources, you're speaking about our human resources department, not one within the fire department?
Through the chair, it is the City of Hamilton Human Resources Department that we've been engaging with on those discussions.
And you indicated that there would be an increase in the position at HR as well as an increase in the fire department.
Through the chair, it'd be an increase within the paramedic service for the one full-time equivalent. That's the program manager. And within human resources, it would move to a full-time position as we've had for the last 2 years. It would be continuing that, much as has happened in the past within the fire service, as you've indicated.
And the funding for the HR position, I'm sorry to belabor it, but we're talking 2 FTEs here, trying to understand it.
The funding through the chair, the funding for the HR position, we've funded that out of our operating budget as a temporary full-time position for the last 2 years. We would continue to do that. Our mechanism for managing that would be through gapping. If it was not through gapping, it would end up going through a process with finance.
Okay. And the new position that you're creating is, it sounded like just an extension of the position that was already there? Or is this a brand new FTE?
For the new position through the chair, it's a brand new FTE. We're looking to take the role that the commander has been filling, which is operational in nature, looking after and supervising supervisors and frontline staff. That role will continue to be there for the commander, and that commander be focused on that. The other work the commander has been doing off the side of the desk and not having the capacity to do adequately would be the new full-time position to manage attendance, to look after all the tracking, the trending, and the analysis, as well as to manage the scheduling department. It is a full-time position, Councillor.
Thank you. I appreciate the explanation, Chief.
Thank you, Councillor Clark, for that clarification. Are there any other members of committee that have questions on this report or comments? I'm not seeing any. Are we okay to proceed with a vote then, committee? I believe that was moved by Councillor Wang and seconded by myself, unless I'm wrong. And bio breaks knocked us down to a 5-0 for this one. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate the discussion, the engagement with staff presentations today. We are not quite done yet. Do we need to go into closed session discussion for these minutes, or are folks okay to maybe approve those in open as we normally do? Yes, moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Wang to approve the minutes from our last meeting's closed session. That vote is now up. And receiving those closed session minutes is carried 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Turning to our bench, is there any general information or other business for today's meeting? That's good. That's what this says here. So it's glad that we're on the same page. There's no other information for today's business. That only brings us to one thing left. That would be adjournment. Can we have a mover and a seconder to adjourn today's meeting? Councillor Wang, Councillor Maureen Wilson. That vote's now up unless there's discussion. And that vote closes at 6-0. We'll see everyone back here or back online in 2 weeks for the October 3rd Emergency Community